1990, as amended. This meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that applies to property, permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to sever property to create new lots. We acknowledge the land we're meeting on is a traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Committee of Adjustment. Public hearings are now conducted in a hybrid in-person and virtual format. Some applicants and participants will make their submissions in person, and others will participate virtually by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform. The meetings are also streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel, and anyone wishing to view the hearing may watch on YouTube. Those who want to participate virtually and have registered in advance will be connecting with their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone and have the option of participating via video or audio only. All virtual participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, you will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. We ask that you also mute your devices until you're called on to speak. Those participating by video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to panelist when your item is being held. During this time, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5-minute allotted speaking time, and at all other times, your video will be disabled and you'll be reinstated as attendee. For both in-person and virtual participants, Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Those participating through WebEx are not allowed to use share screen or any other panelist controls during a video appearance, and the host will remove you from the panelist role if you fail to respect that instruction. People attending in person today who wish to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must fill out a decision request card, and those participating virtually need to submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address because the Committee of Adjustment and the Toronto Local Appeal Body will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, you may be able to appeal the decision to the Toronto Local Appeal Body or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, the provincial government amended the Planning Act and generally removed the rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. Only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, specified persons, and public bodies, as those terms are defined in the Planning Act, are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. All right, for the hearing today, we'll call each item in the order listed on the agenda. When an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with their presentation if desired. But when the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes. It's 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment when you're reaching the 5-minute mark. Any presentations or other materials you wish to submit to the committee must have been emailed in advance of the hearing. Staff and committee members cannot accept materials at the hearing. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first and will make a presentation to the committee on the application. Again, please note the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. Committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Then individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Generally, we call on speakers in the hearing room first and then those online participating through WebEx. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have finished their presentation. And when all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent has the opportunity to rebut only those issues raised by the speakers. This will mark the end of the discussion. The application will then be taken into committee for a decision. Okay, before we get to the first item, Mr. Deputy Secretary Treasurer, are there any confirmation of minutes from the last meeting?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are no minutes to approve.
All right. Are there any declarations of interest of the panel or staff that we should know about for the morning time slot? All right, no declarations of interest. Are there any deferral requests?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have one deferral request this morning. It's item number 186 Ellerslie, and the agent applicant is at the podium.
Oh, fantastic. Welcome. All right, just give me a moment here. All right. Okay. Item number 186 Ellerslie Avenue. The purpose of the application is to obtain consent to sever the existing property into 2 residential lots with 2 separate notices containing variances that include side yard setback for a rear deck, platform and canopy encroachments into a front yard setback, lot coverage, side main wall height, the number of stories, front porch area, rear deck area, as well as east and west side yard setbacks. On file material from the applicant, memo from Development Engineering, a memo from Urban Forestry, as well as letter of objections from 188, 198, 200, 201, and 219 Ellerslie. As well, we do have a staff report from Community Planning. Welcome, sir.
Hi, Lauren Rose, 388 Spadina Road. We're asking for a deferral today because it was brought to our attention that the zoning examination missed some variances.
I did notice that in my review. I was trying to figure out the first ones related to the consent, so
Yeah.
that's pretty straightforward. Any questions? None? All right. Prepared to take this into committee? All right.
Oh,
Yes.
staff have a comment?
Yes. Yes, thank you for pointing that out. All right, Mr. Rose, we'll hear briefly from our speakers. So for those of you here today, actually, who is in person here today for this item? Anybody? No? Online? Okay. So for those listening online, we have a deferral request. We'd like to hear from you very briefly just concerning the request for the deferral. Without getting into the merits of the application.
To you, Mr. Chair, we requested, Marco Drudy.
Mr. Judy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
200 Ellerslie Avenue. With respect to the request for the deferral, I'm sure it's standard. I can tell you it's frustrating. This application was before committee back in 2020, 5 years ago. And it went to T-Lab. It was adjourned 2 or 3 times at T-Lab, and then it was withdrawn. I fear that the same thing is going to happen. So if it is within the power of the committee, I would ask that if it is going to be deferred, that it is peremptory, so we don't have any other further adjournments or deferrals in the future.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
All right, we have another speaker.
Ellerslie. I'm representing my family today. My parents today, they don't speak the language very well. So
Sorry,
I'll
your
be
name?
representing Xiao Xiyin.
Okay, thank you. And we have a request for a deferral. Any comment concerning the deferral request?
Not really. I just want to make sure we can receive the letter about the new date.
Absolutely.
If today is not for, okay.
Staff will have to recirculate the public notice, so you will be receiving an update if there is a future hearing scheduled. Any questions? None? All right, thank you. All right, we'll go back to Mr. Rose. I don't presume there's anything you'd like to add, but the floor is yours if there's...
I know nothing about the previous application. I'm a new architect on the file, so I can't comment.
Fair enough. We're just dealing with
Yep.
what's before us today. Okay, all right, let's take this into committee. Yes, Mr. Marchiori.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to put forward a motion to defer this application as per agent's request to include the missing variance in the new public hearing notice.
All right, do I have a seconder? Second by Mr. Nipfel. All in favor? Right, that is unanimous. All right, the deferral request is granted. Okay, Mr. Deputy Secretary Treasurer, I do see there's one item to be closed. Do we want to deal
Well,
with that now?
we'll address that when we come up to it. It's item
Okay,
number
very good.
4. We'll start with item number 2.
All right, thank you. Okay, item number 2. 547 Glencairn Avenue. The purpose of the application is to obtain consent to sever the property into 2 residential lots. There are as well 2 public notices related to each part with variances that include east side eave projection, lot area, lot frontage, lot coverage, building height, side main wall height, number of stories, building length, building depth, front yard setback, rear yard setback, and east and west side yard setback. On file, material from the applicant, staff report from community planning, a memo from development engineering, and a memo from urban forestry. All right. And Mr. Rose, we have
Yes.
you back.
So Lauren Rose, 388 Spadina Road.
Thank you. Mr. Rose, I'm going to ask for a presentation, just given some of the comments that came from planning, and perhaps you can address those
Okay.
at your convenience.
I'm going to run through my comments quickly because I have 5 minutes. Okay, so this is a property situated 1 block from Bathurst Street and a 10-minute walk to the Glencairn subway station. Both the owners and myself live in the area and know how busy Glencairn is. It's a main street running east-west artery with a yellow line down the middle, which means it's busy with traffic and there are buses all day long. There is a new 9-story condo/hotel 1 block east and another condo on the north side of the street at Bathurst and Glencairn. I'm going to ask you to disregard the planning report for these reasons. First pre-circulation of our application was on December 9th. Then, due to comments that we were asked to make some changes, it was recirculated December 29th. Each time, planning and all other agencies were given 15 days to respond with comments. December 11th, the council responded. He supported the application. December 9th, Heritage Planning Preservation Services responded, no objections. December 27th, Transportation, no objections. December 16th, Forestry responded. ECS responded January 20th. TRCA responded January 29th. On all occasions, planning chose not to respond. They have a requirement to respond to the severance at the very least within 15 days of both circulations. For this reason, we ask you to disregard the report. The process is there for a reason, and my client has been hard done by as a result of a letter being written 2 hours before the deadline from the Committee of Adjustment. My client checked the AIC Application Center every day, twice a day, for months. The planner wrote in his letter on March 27th, "We have unanimous support from many of the neighbors, and we are unaware of any objections except the late planning report. The councillor understands, as we do, that Glencairn is a perfect spot to increase density with its proximity to main streets and subway stations." If staff can show my exhibit, it's called Detached versus Multiplex. What I'm demonstrating here is I could build urbanistically the exact same built form, and it would be called a multiplex. That's not it. The title of the item is Detached versus Multiplex. It'll probably be down towards the bottom. You can show this, I guess, if this is a letter from my client. No. So this is going to be the next one. Sorry, if you can back up. We'll show this one first. This is the existing property. There is a single house on half the property. This is actually not uncommon on Glencairn. There are several situations like that. So if you go next one, next image. Sorry, I hope I get a little extra time. Next image, this is the property again. And the rest of the images are going to show the condo that's being built. There are 2 small houses built next to it. This is in the block next. That's Bathurst and Glencairn. Next slide. These are the small houses being built right now. Next. These are other severances on Glencairn, 25-foot lots. Next. This is a multiplex across the street. There are several multiplexes in this neighborhood. What I'm pointing out here is there's many versions of housing types, which is applicable. Another 25-footer, sorry, 7.65. And these are a severance that I did on Glencairn through this very committee about 2 years ago. So it is in keeping with development in the area. If staff can show that exhibit that I'm asking for, it's called detached versus multiplex. So this is our proposal, what we're coming with. And if you go to the next page. So this is the exact same built form. So my client who wants to live in House B could occupy that. If we link these 2 buildings in their basement and have one unit on top of the other, so unit 1, 2, 3, and unit 4, this is called a multiplex. The built form is exactly the same thing. So planning's objection is really only about the lot size, which refers to ownership. It means 2 people can't own it, 1 person can own it. So planning has to also look at what the built form is as part of their requirements. So we could have changed the application to look like this, and it would be, I could have more density, I could have more length, height would probably stay the same. This is my evidence, and I do believe this does meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act. It is desirable for a rapidly changing street and meets a need for more housing near transit hubs. Finally, the OP, which they state in the report, states the physical changes to our established neighborhoods must be sensitive, gradual, and fit the existing physical character. A key objective of this plan is that new development respect and reinforce the general physical patterns in a neighborhood. There are small lots in this neighborhood. There are severances in this neighborhood. There are multiplexes in this neighborhood. There are condos in this neighborhood. That makes a neighborhood. There's one last exhibit, sorry.
Very briefly, just because
Yes.
we're about a minute over.
I'm finished, but growing Glencairn study, if you can put that up. This was brought to my attention by the planner's boss. It's a new document. Just brought to my attention. Glencairn is actually under a study called Growing Glencairn Study. It's a different document, not on this page. So it's anticipated, we're halfway through. It was just submitted yesterday. We're halfway through to end this year, the fact that Glencairn is known to be under change. And so they're increasing, just like they did on Marley, where you were only allowed houses, now they're building condos. This city needs more housing, and Glencairn couldn't be a more perfect street to allow development like this. I guess staff can't find the report, but there is a study that will be ending this December. No, it's a map that I got off the city website.
Fair enough, fair enough. I just have some very quick questions. So I'm just curious, some of the examples you brought up, they were at 25-foot wide lots?
Yes, sorry. I speak feet.
Glencairn's a very big street, very long street. So just help us just get a little bit of perspective in terms of kind of where we're at on Glencairn and where some of those examples fall
Good
to. Because I
stuff.
think as you go further to the east, the block pattern does shift slightly, right? Like the lots tend to become narrower as you go west on Glencairn. Is that
Yes, there is a mix.
past Bathurst, right? But
right.
it changes slightly.
That, by the way, that's the lot study, and you can read what it says about growing Glencairn. It's anticipated. It's what the councillor want. It's what the neighbors want. We have no opposition except this report, which was delayed many times. And, you know, I don't know anything for a fact, but when it's written that late, my guess is the planner never went out to the site. He's looking at his desk in this cubicle at the lot pattern of the immediate block.
Yep.
But that's not what planning should be. That's part of what planning should be looking
Yep.
at. But diverse kinds of housing, which is what you see on GLENCAIRN. Across the street, there's lots of small lots. So it's just this block. We're not doing it on the off one street east or west of GLENCAIRN. It's for GLENCAIRN. No one's going to build a big, beautiful 50-foot lot on GLENCAIRN, which is under change this day and age. It would be not a good use, and
Yeah.
so close
So-
to Subway. I drive my wife to the Subway there all the time.
Just tell me, so there was 2 new builds, 25-foot frontages on GLENCAIRN. Do you recall what number those are?
So mine was 6.8 something, the one I showed. They are further east, west.
West, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, but it is a sort of it's a gradual change, right? And as you sort of move, once you go from one side of Bathurst to the other, it does change, and then once you pass the next major street, there is even more.
But if you look across the street, we're on the south side. The north side has much smaller lots. They may not be 25 footers. They might be 28, 30, but they're the same kind of house that we're proposing.
Okay.
It's not a developer situation either. Anyways,
All right. Do we have any questions right now?
Actually,
Yes.
a question, Mr. Rose. I think aside from a planning report, there is also a negative urban forestry report.
so that's fair. They did report. We are happy to work with them. Any condition of forestry is no problem. We've already anticipated that we would make the house B actually smaller to save that tree. It's not a problem. If you choose to approve it, you can do subject to forestry.
Variances about building length and building depth is resulting in removal of
Correct.
few healthy trees. So
We will make sure that no trees are injured, that we would go through forestry, and you could make it a condition that we comply with it. We're aware of that.
Okay.
That's not a problem for us. And rightly, we should be doing that.
That's it. Yeah.
I got a few questions. So you've basically criticized the planning staff. So I need to understand what the relationship was with the planning staff for this application. Did you have discussions with them prior to their report?
After the report?
Before?
No, because they are to reach out to us if they have any problems. It's a requirement. So Committee of Adjustment pre-circulates applications that they seem fit. Usually severances fit that requirement. It's sent out to all the departments. They have 15 days to respond. This was circulated twice because ECS asked us to make some changes, which we did. They didn't respond either time. They are required to respond. They missed their chance. I don't know what triggered them to write a letter on the 27th, the last day, that was submitted 2 hours before the deadline. I don't know what it was, but I did speak to the author's boss, who was out of town,
Okay.
spoke, and he said we were wrong.
Well,
Yeah.
So you mean the staff told you after they wrote the report that they thought they made a mistake on the report?
They didn't say that there was a mistake. He hadn't read the report. He said we erred and we were required to submit comments. And they didn't twice.
So they didn't submit their comments in time, but they stick to their comments. Did they talk to you about the substance of their comments?
So I spoke to the author, and he was of no real help. I don't know that he ever went out to the site, but I spoke to his boss at length. He admitted fault, that they should have reached out twice.
Okay, but
Okay.
that aside, let's assume they made a mistake in terms of timing. Let's talk about the substance of their.
The boss hadn't had time to review it. He was the one who told me that GLENCAIRN is under a study. I didn't know that until then. So he couldn't comment. He had just come back. And he was unaware that I had a severance down the road. He didn't really know the history, which is fair. He just came back. But why is my client put out for, the application before, there was errors in
Okay.
planning. And
So I mean, I'm sympathizing with your client. However, I mean, there's a bigger picture here, right? So I'm trying to, this is a challenge I have because
I got it.
staff are not here to answer a question. So I have to kind of think, what are they think? It would be much better if staff issues a negative report, if they were here to explain their negative report and put context into it. Otherwise, I have to read between the lines, and I only have you here to sort of help me, and you've got your client to represent. But
So
I'm trying to figure out what the heck is going on here.
that's fair. And all I can surmise, and I'm not the author, is planning has this rule that they only look at the immediate block. And I think on GLENCAIRN, the busy street, a street that's in transition, that is myopic, and that the planner doesn't know this street. I know this street. There's buses. It's a nightmare to drive at rush hour.
Yeah.
And so to think of this street like any other street on a block, it's not looking at the big picture. It's looking at, oh, the lot study doesn't have any lot that size. But look across the street. Look a block east, west, and 2 blocks west. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I mean, I could ask you more questions, but it'd be only for you to speculate, because I'm trying to understand what they were thinking.
true,
They
it's
did
true.
issue a negative report. It's not for you to really
Maybe if they had reached
speculate
out,
on why they issued their negative report. I wish they were here, but anyway.
if they had reached out to me, I might understand it better.
Yeah, okay, that's it.
Any other questions? All right, looks like we can take this into committee. All right, thank you, Mr. Rose. All right. Yes, Mr. Nipfel.
Thank you,
Get
Mr. Chair.
started with this.
Regardless of how it happened, we have the report from planning that is clear in recommending refusal of the application, the consent in particular. I find the information in that report appears valid, and I find it convincing. I am not prepared to approve an application when there is this type of negative report and a suggestion for refusal from planning. So I'm unable to support the consent application in this case. I wonder if there would be any merit in the applicant and planning actually getting together and discussing it. I don't really want to get involved in a discussion about whether the planner did or didn't do his job properly. That's, as my colleague indicated, it's all speculation, and I don't think it's appropriate. But I do think that the comments from planning are pretty clear, and I'm inclined to be convinced by them. Also, as another colleague indicated, there is a negative report from forestry as well. And it's not a case of you could just want to agree with them. They basically have suggested that they do not agree with variances, and I think it's only for one of the 2 packages of variance, but they don't agree with variance 7 and 8. And I think it's for part 2. So that's also an outstanding, basically, refusal on the page. So at this point, with those negative comments from agencies that I respect, I'm unable to support the application.
So I have a problem when we get staff reports late, when staff is not here to address them.
Yeah,
I have a problem with that process. I think it does prejudice the applicant.
yeah, absolutely.
However, there's a bigger picture here too. And I hate to be part of, the process where I don't think it's actually being fair to the applicant. Nevertheless, we've got a bigger job to do, and that's what's fair to the broader planning perspective and the test under the Planning Act. And I think when we look at the test under the Planning Act, we have to go to planning reasons, and we've got some from staff. So unless I, who is not a planner, feel that I want to impose my planning expertise over top of the staff. I think I have to give some deference to the staff, even though I feel that they haven't been fair to the applicant. I still feel that their reasons hold weight in planning, and therefore it doesn't meet the tests under the Planning Act. So like my colleague, I would refuse it, not because I feel great about that, but because I think it will lead to better planning, and we'll have to, unfortunately, have the applicant, if my colleagues agree, go back to planning staff, deal with that, come to a resolution, and then come here again, either with a greater argument of why the planning report is not entirely valid, a better argument than that they didn't meet their procedural requirements. So I would agree with my colleague here. It doesn't meet the tests under the Planning Act. And I would
Okay.
refuse.
Yeah, it is a tough one with respect to planning, and I certainly understand where the applicant is coming from, the fact that they've provided a report as late as they did without any discussion, and then if they don't show up to have to defend it, we sort of, but
I agree with the applicant that it's not fair, but I think we have a better job to do, which is to meet the tests under the Planning Act. I don't think it meets it based on what I've read from the staff report. So I think we've got to just let them go back to the table, as much as that may be
Is that a deferral?
unfair. Well, I'm willing to defer it too, if that's what, if that will work better, but I don't know. I think I'm going to leave it to my colleague to make the motion, but if he recommends refusal, I'd be okay with that. I just don't think it should proceed based on what I've seen under this staff report. That's all.
yeah, and normally I would be against a deferral after presentations given, after we've had some discussion, but I do have some concern with the fact that we do have a community planning report that came in as late as it did. That said, I mean, aside, once you can get past the consent, if that meets the test, then you got to look at the variances of the buildings that are actually being proposed. Actually, since I've started on committee, this is some of for two buildings that are a result of a consent, among the nicest buildings that I've seen designed, in terms of aesthetic, but we still have to get past the consent portion. Are there any other comments? I don't know, Mr. Nitfeld, otherwise, maybe you want to, I don't know where you're going with this, whether you are leaning towards a deferral or refusal, but there's no other
Mr.
comments,
Chair,
maybe.
I had my hand up
Yes, Ms. Sankar Peralta.
for a while.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you. So, I mean, listen, I do hear what everyone is saying. I understand what's happening with planning. I also do feel, with respect to the comments made about the urban forestry, I understand that the applicant said that they will go ahead and work with urban forestry on this and make the design in such a manner that, they would not get an outright refusal. So, and I do believe that that will happen, that they will have to, or else they will still be denied, even if should we approve this application. I do know that, I believe the applicant when he says he understands this street better than everybody else and this region. And I don't take that lightly as well.
Yep.
I know we have to consider that we are human and we make errors, and that maybe planning itself has been late in this, and maybe that has caused, some kind of, I guess, considerations that maybe we should mull over, because it's about fairness in the process as well. So while ordinarily on paper, I do agree, and I can only go on what planning says, and I just feel that there's some strength. I think the process for how this sort of went about may be something that is concerning. And so for those reasons, and given the breadth of the experience of the applicant, as he says,
Yeah.
and his willingness to work with forestry, would we consider a deferral to give them at least the opportunity to talk this through with planning and with, forestry, as opposed to an outright deferral, which in essence will monetarily penalize the applicant to have to reapply should they want to move forward still and feel that there's a vested interest. So I just want to throw that out there, that I do agree with everyone what they're saying, but maybe instead of an outright refusal, and I know we don't like doing this, but in this situation, for fairness in the process, could we consider a deferral? So I'll leave it there.
All right. No comment. All right.
You
We have
know
a.
what, I just, in this case, I mean, I hate to do this, but I'd rather come out of committee, just ask the applicant if he would be okay with a deferral, come back in and do a deferral. I mean, we don't have to do that. We can just do the deferral if we want. We don't have to come. He's already made the case for a refusal. I think he's actually spoken out of turn and said deferral. So it's up to you, Mr. Chair, if you want to go out. But
Sure,
otherwise, somebody can bring a motion.
I think I'm
deferral or.
I'm sort of reading the temperature in the room. I
Yeah.
sort of see two kind of possibilities on the table, and
I'm
I
kind of
don't
leaning to
doubt-
deferral myself.
Yeah,
just because of
I
the-
think
to try
also
to balance the fairness.
just getting the forestry stuff out of the way
Yeah.
too is also helpful, because then I'm more curious to also hear a bit more about the secondary plan or the sort of policies that
Okay.
are sort of coming down the pipeline,
New
because
study, yeah.
I do take the applicant's submission that they do know the area very well, and I think they have a good sensibility to,
So,
frankly, just what works and what doesn't work.
It-
So I think it could benefit from some further discussion.
So, I hate to have to read between the lines, right? Maybe I shouldn't speculate, but I think that maybe there's a lot going on here, so the planner kind of got cold feet late and then just recommended a refusal, but, but yeah, maybe that's too much to speculate.
Fair enough.
It's hard to really, as a member, it's hard to know what to do when you're not entirely comfortable with a late report, but you want to give it deference because of the expertise of our staff. And so I think to balance it, I think, just listen to my colleagues. I think a deferral makes the most sense here.
Give us a motion.
Okay,
See where
I'll
it
make a
goes?
motion to defer the application.
All right. Do I have a seconder? Yep. Oh,
The reason of the applicant makes very good points in his submission, but there is negative staff report which also makes very good points, and the negative staff report was issued late. So given that the applicant has may face further hardship as a result of a refusal, I would bring a motion for deferral.
all right. Do I have a seconder?
Could I,
Oh, yep.
would it be fair to get a friendly amendment today to say that the reason for the deferral is for the applicant to work further with planning and
Yes.
landscape or forestry? Because
Yes,
I think, as the chairman indicated, let's see if we can resolve both problems.
right, exactly.
Or at
To get-
least
and to-
one of the
And give
two.
the applicant time to work
I-
with staff.
Puts a better foot forward.
forestry.
Yeah.
Yes, I think I mentioned that before, but it should go in if we're going to look at reasons for this, that would definitely be reason.
Okay. Very good. All right. We've got a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Second by Mr. Nitfeld. All in favor? All right. That's unanimous. It's deferred. All right. So we've dealt with item number 1 and 2. We're going to be moving on to item number 3. This is our third and final consent application today. Item number 3, 96 Churchill Avenue. This is application, as I noted, for consent. It requires a number of variances, including lot frontage, driveway width, building depth, east and west main wall height, west side yard setback, and drive aisle width. On file material from the applicant, memo from Development Engineering, a report from Heritage Planning, emails from the TRCA and RNFP, a memo from Urban Forestry, letter of objection from 94, 96, and 98 Tamworth Road. All right. And we have our agent. Actually, and also I do see we have a late report from community planning on this. Okay, do we have our agent or applicant with us, Mr. Rubinoff?
Yes, good morning. It's Glenn Rubinoff, our Rubinoff Design Group, 2 Fair Avenue West, Toronto, Ontario.
Welcome back, Mr. Rubinoff. Going to ask for a brief presentation from you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Chair. So this is an application for a lot severance and minor variances to create 2 lots on 96 Churchill Avenue. What you have before you are some reports, all of which are in support of this application. City planning, again, they were a bit late with their report, but if you read through it, if you've had a chance to look, it's fully in support of the file of the lot severance, of the minor variances before you as well. Forestry, we did submit a letter. They have no objection to this. In fact, they are fully supportive of it because we've worked with them, and they just said that they cannot issue a permit until, of course, the application has been through committee. But those letters have been submitted as well to committee. And Transportation Department, there was extensive back and forth discussions with them and meetings and so forth. And now they are also have no objection to this file as well. So the application is pretty straightforward. It's a large lot. There's about, I believe the lot study that the city planning did indicated that there are only 4 lots of this size in the area. There is no variance for lot frontage, or sorry, lot width, lot area. It exceeds the requirement. Apologies. In terms of lot frontage and width, there's about 36% of lots in the area are undersized lots effectively, and city planning feels that this is well within the desirability of the area to see the development of two homes in this area. The side yard setback, there is between the houses, the proposed houses, they are compliant with the side yard setback. It's also in the staff report. It's clear that there are several homes in the area also that are below the 1.8 meter requirement. We're asking for 1.5 meters on the one side, and we feel that's appropriate. It's just a matter of the way in which the houses have been set. We've also set the houses, staggered them a bit between the 2 adjacent homes so that there's a setback as per the bylaw. There's no depth. There's depth variance for one lot, but not for the other. That's in relation to the positioning of the houses, and this is also part of the staff report. We're asking for 19.3 meters where 19 meters is required, so that's difference of 0.3 in terms of the depth of the building. The building itself is 19 meters, but the positioning of it creates the variance for the extra foot. What else? I read some of the opposition letters concerning garden suites. We have no garden suites before you today. There's no application. There's something that my client may consider in the future, but that's not before the committee today. The parking, we've created a right-of-way. Some of the variances related to the driveway width are related to the fact that they're outside of the right-of-way. When you combine it with the right-of-way, there's plenty of room to drive to the back, and it's desirable to have parking behind the buildings. It gives more landscaping. It protects the trees in front, and this is part of the reason why forestry is in support of this application. So we've minimized the impact of the front yards. So the variance is related to the width of the driveway is not taking into account the right of way. Wall height, another concern expressed, is specifically related to the windows that project beyond the eaves. So it's not the side wall for the entire side, it's just for those windows that project above. So again, city planning has pointed out that they would tie us to plans just to protect this. But certainly it's a minimal impact when you look at the fact that the eaves are actual, at a much lower level. It's just for that projections above. So those are my comments. I feel that this is a fairly straightforward application. This area has a lot of homes that have been severed and similar size lots. There's townhouses down the street. We're not too far from Yonge Street. There's a lot of redevelopment. Churchill is known for that. It's a fairly busy street. It's a through street to Yonge. I think what we're proposing fits into the character of the area. I will make just a quick note that these are triplexes, which are permitted use on the property, but they're designed so that the units at the front, they look like single family homes. They're not something that looks like anything that would be construed as being something that doesn't fit in. So I'll leave it there. If there's any questions or any other speakers, thank you.
Thank you. All right, questions? Yes, Mr. Nipfel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Rubinoff, I'm pleased to see the staggered positioning of the two proposed buildings, which reflects the streetscape that's already existing. The one issue, and a number of the other issues that I would have had with the variances, planning has addressed with conditions, which I agree with. The one thing that still stands out for me is the parking in the backyard basically is adjacent to two existing residential properties on either side. Have you had any discussions with the owners of those properties? And have you any proposal for how the parking lot, the cars that are there could be screened or made more compatible with the amenity spaces behind those houses? I believe one of the objectors mentioned lights, which is an issue, of course, and noise and so forth, but it does seem to me that some level of screening would be appropriate, and you may have already had that discussion with neighbors.
Thank you for that. The actual parking there's an existing, I think with some of the photos that were provided by the neighbors, there's a fair bit of screening already with regards to existing trees and whatnot. However, my client is amenable to, if it's a matter of putting up a privacy screen, a 6-foot privacy screen along the front of where you would be parking to mitigate any disturbance. Of course, they'd be amenable to that. Generally, I find that the city prefers to see parking on these types of lots in the rear. There are no set variances related to the parking in the rear. We did create a right of way to allow for the fronts to maintain a lot more landscaping and green space. But certainly, I understand the concerns expressed, and certainly would be willing to provide screening as needed.
Thank you.
Other questions? I had a question. So both of these properties are being put forward as a triplex. Is it the intention, and I understand this also might just have to do with the way that the city currently addresses development fees, but is the intention to add that fourth unit in after the permit is closed by way of, it's not a nefarious sort of strategy. My understanding is the city allows a triplex without development fees, but as soon as you go to that additional unit, all of a sudden development fees kick in. So my understanding is a bit of a strategy to develop 3 units, close a building permit, then go file for the 4th unit after the fact. I bring it up because I'd rather there just be sort of, let's put everything on the table, full disclosure. It is what it is, rather than, come up later and, people think that maybe it's for nefarious reasons, but maybe you can just speak to that.
Thanks. No, I appreciate your comments on that. My client wanted to do a study to see the possibility, but there are no actual plans that have been developed to put garden suites back there. It's just a future planning thing that they wanted to make sure that they didn't create any situation which would be, potentially be a problem, going down the road. But certainly, their intention is strictly to do the triplexes at this point. There are no plans to proceed with any further developments at this point in time.
Okay.
It
No,
is
actually,
quite a deep property, a large property. Yeah.
Yeah, you bring up the garden suite, but I was actually referring to the basement, the front part of the basement labeled as storage. It's got separate access there. Could easily accommodate a 4th unit.
Yeah, no, the clients are strictly working with the idea of a triplex. I think it was just an exiting measure, just to to ensure ease of access if they're moving equipment in or out. But it's not. There was no 4th unit.
Fair enough.
Proposed at this point.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions at this time? I'm seeing none. Okay, we have some speakers. I'd like to hear from, who is here today to speak to this item? All of you guys, okay. And who would like to come down first? All right.
So good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Flood, and I'm from 94 Tamworth. We have with us 96 Tamworth, 98 Tamworth, 101 Churchill, and 99 Churchill. So essentially, 100 Churchill. Hi. Okay. So you're right next door. Yes. So we've got the properties surrounding on Churchill. So we haven't spoken or met formally at all. And I must confess that the previous discussion about the impact of the planning report has me thinking. And I noticed that the planning report in this case makes a number of statements. I would like to underscore that the discretion is the committee's, and that discretion should not be abrogated to the planning department, because that's why we're here, and that's why you exist. I also take issue, serious issue, with the number of variances and the size of the variances in this case. Because at some point, either just by the number of the variances or the actual size of the variances, this tips from being a minor variance. It becomes, this is a rewrite of the zoning bylaw in my submission. And in that regard, this is the first time this bill form has been suggested for west of Tamworth. And in fact, if you look at the city initiative right now with respect to intensification, the boundary for that is the next block over. It's at Basswood. So since this is the first time that we're looking at this bill form, I think it's important that we get it right, because it becomes precedential, that it be subject to a proper review and not brought in on a minor variance, and that because it's precedential now throughout the whole neighborhood, people come along and say, well, they did it down there, I want to do this, I want to do this. So now we get a patchwork of various intensifications that aren't really in keeping with the official plan, which I've cited on a number of occasions in my report and my submissions, a number of occasions, not in keeping with the official plan, which is to maintain the character of the neighborhood. So, you know, I don't, other than what I've written, in my view, my submission, this is not a minor variance, this is a rewrite of the bylaw. Every dimension that the bylaw provides for is being extended. We have an access road to the back parking lot, which is narrow. Well, we've just had a winter. Where does the snow go? Right? Where do the cars go? I mean, once you've got all the snow down the back, the access road gets blocked, and suddenly we've got parking up front. We've got a whole change in the nature of the thing. So these dimensions are there for a reason, and to wholesale abandon the dimensions takes you out of the realm of a minor variance and puts you squarely in the realm of a discussion that we need to have with respect to amending bylaws and amending zoning to permit this level of intensification. Even the city, as I say, is not looking to intensify west of Basswood, a block and a half away. So I really don't have anything to add. If there are any questions.
Actually, I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Mercer.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your comment. I just want to understand which variance are you objecting? You mentioned about build form. So how does it differ from a single-family house if we have these variances? What variance is actually you're directly objecting?
Well, that's actually a very good point, because across the road, in number 105 a number of years ago, there was an application, and it was for a severance and then variances to permit a house to be built. And when those, all of the variances, right? I mean, I cited to you the divisional court. I'm a lawyer, so or a retired lawyer, so the case law is rather important to me. So when I cited to you the divisional court, just the size of variances alone, whether they have impact, would be sufficient to lift this out of being a minor variance. And when you want to vary height, well, let's take the variance that we don't actually, I wouldn't object to, and that's the building depth. So the building depth is a 1.5% variation on what's permitted. That's minor. But when you're getting at 20%, 27%, 19%, this is shoehorning a building onto a lot that won't take it within the bylaw, and that elevates it from being a minor variance. Also, with respect to the severance, I acknowledge it is a wide lot. However, there was again across the road, 105 and 107 Churchill, almost directly opposite, slightly kitty corner, where that type of lot intensification was denied by the T-Lab a few short years ago. So, you know, if the lot is used as it currently is, you don't need these variances. You can put up the triplex that you want without seeking a single variance. Right? So it's the severance, the combination of the severance and then the shoehorning that causes the concern. And in my view, it doesn't really align, notwithstanding what planning says, doesn't really align with the official plan or the zoning bylaw. And those are my submissions. Any other questions? No? Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we have some other speakers. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Andrew Robinson. I'm in 99 Churchill with my wife here today. We're just across the street from the proposal. My concern, what I wanted to raise, my objection would be related to the variances for this, the laneway that go back. It's a variance on a narrowness and a variance on the ability to turn around in the parking space behind. And my concerns are, as was just pointed out, we had winter. I have a narrow driveway, and getting the snow all the way through this laneway is going to be very challenging. And as a result, the cars are going to be not all going to be able to make it through. I'm worried about the additional congestion on the street, and since there is no parking allowed on the north side of the street, the cars will be parking on the south side of the street. And so it's going to be directly in front of my house. And so my concern has to do with the parking, with the space that is given to the laneway, and the ability to have the cars sort of go through, especially during the winter months, and that will affect both, the properties directly across and the neighborhood, but also the traffic. As was mentioned, this is a through street, so it's going to be more congestion on this road. So thank you. That's my objection. If there are any questions.
Yes, Mr. Nifil.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If the driveway, the right-of-way in the driveway, if it extended further back into the rear yard and allowed space for snow storage and maneuverability, you mentioned snow storage, but you also mentioned it's difficult to turn around in here. If that driveway was extended further into the rear yard to allow a space to store snow and allowed you to turn your car around, would that in any way address your concerns?
I think it would adjust it. The thing that I did, so yes, I think it would adjust it. I think having additional parking there, people have visitors, people drive in this area. Having only 6 spots is 1 per unit. It is unrealistic to say nobody's going to ever have an additional spot. So I think that, yes, having storage for snow, having space for visitors is a reasonable way to address it.
So you'd support expanding the size of the parking lot, the number of parking spaces?
I think that would address my concern about the congestion. I'm not sure it addresses will they actually be able to get the snow? It's a 60-plus foot narrow laneway, so I'm not sure if it addresses that, but it certainly would help.
Okay, thank you very much.
If there's
Other
anything.
questions? Okay, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Michelle Worth, and I live at 96 Tamworth Road. My husband, Ken, here, we've been living in this house for 37 years, so we are Willowdale residents for a long, long time. So would the photographs still be, I presented with my submission 4 photographs showing our backyard. Okay. So our concern, actually we don't see the whole, we have a swimming pool, and this is what we are seeing from our backyard. And we have, the space is filled with mature and young trees, and it's a beautiful natural green backdrop that enhance our privacy, right? Because we have this swimming pool. Okay, so the proposed development that will, what it says, and going to his question, the extending the driveway into our backyard, so it will be even more of a negative impact on our view and our enjoyment of our property for so many years. So the proposed development with the parking lot, that we also are very concerned with the traffic and the disruption and the noise, especially in the winters when the car will be idling. And so, so this is why we oppose the severance. And also, I wanted to bring that, unlike other multi-unit developments, this project is the only one who actually introduced a parking lot that run across several properties. our neighbors. Again, you know, this project will diminish our privacy, and it will be also, we feel that, you know, I don't know if you heard about the heat island effect, but creating, you know, some asphalt and concrete, you know, will increase and not be within, you know, the Canadian strategy to bring more canopy, tree cover, and in order to fight this heat island, and it will really destroy a beautiful part of our neighborhood. Thank you. And
Okay, I understand we have to share the time. We're 96 Tamworth Road, Kenworth. Again, living there 37 years. And we're concerned about the triplex being built because it came to our attention that that in the arborist plans, there was discussion or some plans to put a future garden suites, which would directly overlook our backyard and pool, as Michelle has shown. But we understand that if you have a triplex, that you can't put a garden suite in as well. This is something that we have to discuss further. I believe that that has been discussed in these chambers in the past. And it's also not clear from the planning how far this driveway is going to go back. And there's some lines that go back even further than where the parking lot is. I would assume that's for the garden suites. And I don't just assume. I've spoken to Ali, the property owner, on several occasions. And one day he was with his planner, and I went over the back fence, and as you can see there, had a discussion with him, and he was discussing putting garden suites in there. So this is something that's coming. It's being, I don't want to use nefarious, but that word did come up today. It seems like a back plan. Get this passed, that's done, let's move in and do the rest. The parking's there. There's not enough parking for one, because who has just one car these days? Most people have one or two in our neighborhood anyway, because it's a single residential neighborhood. The other thing is that we have approached Ali to purchase the land, and he has rejected our offer over the last few years. We had a discussion with him in his backyard by his poolside, talking about privacy, and he felt that he was not the one that was responsible for people's privacy.
Just be mindful of the clock.
Yeah. Okay, since we're sharing the time, I just wanted to reinforce a couple of points my wife made, so there you go. We'd like clarity on the garden suites. It's not fair, it's not right. We've made gestures, financial gestures, to purchase the property. What his plans are to sell it, he had mentioned maybe, but not really, because he was planning, and we were speaking with the planner over the fence, and he said something, oh, we're going to build a pool here, go with yours. Friendly anecdotes like this, but we did not feel that they were sincere, nor did we get a straight answer. We really demand a straight answer on the garden suites and the parking, please.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
So the photo of the nice backyard, by the way.
Thank you very much.
I'm just curious, if a lot of those mature trees, there was an arborist report done. Are any of those trees on the subject property, or are they all on your property?
No, they're on the subject's property as well.
They are on the subject's property?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so that sort of it perhaps addresses where your concern is coming from, that if they should remove any of those privately owned trees at the back of their property, it will change the sort of the nature, the privacy, the on-look into your backyard.
That's correct.
So I understand correctly.
That's
the
correct.
concern.
And also, I've heard that people say, well, we'll remove that tree so we can build here, but we'll plant another one there. Well, that, we've been there 37 years. We know how long it takes to grow a tree.
Yep.
And that will
And
definitely, and we're older, and we know what it'll do to change the character of the neighborhood.
Fair enough.
Keeping it cool, keeping it shaded, keeping it private, keeping it like a residential area,
Yep.
not like an apartment complex, and with driveways, with cars on idle, as my wife said, snow removal, an issue.
Okay.
Fair enough. We could go on.
Get too far. My colleague has a question for you as well, Mr.
Sure.
Midville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could we get the site plan back up on the monitor for the people to look at? I'm not sure if you're aware, but if I look at your property and the proposal we have before us, the parking in the driveway that are proposed are not in your backyard.
Well, I'd like to.
My understanding,
yeah.
well, and
Go ahead. Go ahead, sorry.
this is all questions that we can ask Mr. Rubinoff when he comes back. But it seems to me that you're the 1, 2, 3, you're the fourth property up, in which case the proposal. That
No, we are towards the top of the page,
Yeah.
the second one.
So yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the proposal that we have before us doesn't impact on what you look at all. It's basically, it remains as is, as we have it before us. Now, can't talk about the future. We don't have a garden suite in front of us. But your concern with parking and driveways doesn't appear to affect your property at all. It's further down on the subject property. Do you see what
I see what you're saying, but I also have neighbors who I respect and care about, and they will be affected. But I know that when you start a car and there's fumes going, they don't just stay in one square little area. They go everywhere. And so, and also the sound of a starting car, the idling, the lights, they would affect us. Lights would beam right towards us.
So screening isn't going to solve that problem for you?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, what kind of screening? I guess 6 feet of...
well, and depending on where you put it, you could create a space that you can't maintain. So, yeah.
And it's more than that. You can see there's also the road is extended back to the end of the Greg's property, who spoke first, and it's kind of ghosted in. So it's maybe they're going to build it that far back. They don't think they're going to build it that far back. It looks like it's in the planning.
We can ask for clarification.
Yeah, it looks like it's in the planning. It looks like it's a garden suite because he's told me that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and with the triplexes, I was under the impression that no garden suites with triplexes. And there we go. And appreciate you listening to us and your questions.
Thank you. I don't think we have any other questions. I would like to hear from some of the rest of your neighbors. So
great. Thank you very much.
A few more speakers.
Oh, I'm sorry. You want to go ahead? Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Saurabh Rastogi. I live at 98 Tamworth Road with my wife and kids. We've been there for just about 17 years. Thank you for this opportunity to be here and to make my case along with my neighbors. Some of the things that I will say are things you've already heard because we share not only the neighborhood, but we share similar concerns. So I appreciate if you are patient with some of the points that are going to be repeated. I have 4 things that I'd like to point out. The first one is our neighbor, Greg, Mr. Flood, who came first, has already made a very compelling argument, at least from our perspective. And what I would like to say is that we embrace everything that Greg has said. It's really important to us. And the thing that I would emphasize is that there is a fabric, a nature that our neighborhood has. And I think some of that will change as a result of this development, and especially if you look at homes that are west of Tamworth Road on Churchill. The second point is, again, Ken talked about it around the garden suites. We would be really grateful if we had further clarification, and I know Mr. Rubinoff did make the case that no garden suites are being planned, but some of the conversations that Ken has mentioned with the owner didn't leave us with a feeling that no garden suites are going to be forthcoming. So any clarification, further clarification, or guarantees are a strong word that we could get that there would be no garden suites in the future would be much appreciated. The third point that I'd like to make is with respect to the trees. I know we just talked about it. Mr. Nicol, you had this question, and both Ken and Michelle made that case. The rear part of the property has really a lot of very mature trees. I mean, these are a vital part of our neighborhood's character. They obviously provide environmental benefits, air quality improvements, and habitat for local wildlife like this, rabbits and things like that. They also, really enhance the aesthetic value of the area and a natural buffer, and to the property, both Ken and mine and others. And the last point would be the parking lot. And I know, Mr. Nicol, you made the point, if the driveway was further extended, if it's further extended, it has a even more detrimental effect to our properties. We are not clear that we would have only 6 cars parked there, just to the point, some of the points that were made earlier. And those would be, my comments. I think any assurances that we could get with respect to the preservation of the trees around the garden suites would be greatly appreciated. With that, I'll stop in my comments and take any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Questions? I think a lot of the questions too have been asked
Yes,
of your
that's right,
neighbors
Mr.
as
Chair.
well. All right, no questions at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Kim Jepson. I'm representing Carolyn Feather. She lives at 100 Churchill Avenue. I've lived with her for the last 12 years. We're concerned about the variance between our house and the new building that's being proposed. We're opposed to the changes of the variance. We don't want that house closer to ours. And we're kind of, we haven't been talking to the developer about the parking lot either. So those are 2 concerns we have. And that's all. Thank you.
Questions? Just to clarify, your concern predominantly then is with the side yard setback, one of the side yard setbacks directly adjacent to your property?
That's it.
Interest in your property?
Yeah, it brings the new house closer to our house, the side of the house.
Right.
And we've been there for, Carolyn's been there for 34 years now. And she bought that property on the premise that it had space between the 2 houses beside her. And it's going to take away from that. We're a residential area. First of all, we're going to have a 3-story house right beside us. That takes away from the ambience of the residential area.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough.
And I'm not an expert on this. I apologize for my inconsistency, but we just don't want that house closer to our house.
Okay. All right, understood.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I believe I'm the last one. My name is Eric Borromeo. I live at 101 Churchill, kind of across the street, diagonal just a little bit. I'm here with my wife, Jane. And we are opposed to the proposal. And we're here to ask that the request to sever the property at 96 Churchill into 2 narrow 37.5-foot lots be denied. My family moved to the Willowdale West community about 22 years ago, choosing this property over suburbs because of the unique homes, larger lots, mature trees, and generous green space between the properties. We invested in the area by constructing a home ourselves to raise our family, fully complying with all the existing bylaws and without seeking any variances. We strongly believe that these bylaws are in place to preserve the character of the neighborhood that we sought 22 years ago. While I do not oppose development and recognize the need to replace aging homes in the area, we do believe that new construction should be respectful of the existing residents and their surrounding community. My concern is that the area around 96 Churchill primarily comprises six single-family detached homes, typically 1 or 2 stories in height. Permitting the proposed severance would result in narrow 37.5 by 300-foot lots that are inconsistent with the neighborhood's established character. Furthermore, the possibility of severance of this lot encourages the applicant to exceed zoning bylaw standards for setbacks and building height, amongst other areas, while incorporating an unusual driveway, which was not specifically addressed in the city staff planning report, a letter that was posted on April 1st. We believe that this driveway configuration is unprecedented in the area and is not in keeping with the neighborhood's character. The TLAB denial of the appeal to sever the lots at 105 and 107 Churchill a few years ago into 35.5-foot lots illustrates similar reasoning, I believe. The proposed multiplex structures are tall and narrow, which creates a stark contrast with the existing bungalow, split-level homes, and 2-story homes on wider lots in our area. Allowing this development would set a precedent that would permanently alter and degrade the character of our streetscape. My block would be substantially negatively impacted, and I would be personally affected, I believe, as well as the 10 or so people that are completely surrounding this the proposed 96 Churchill development, as you've just heard. So thank you very much for your time and consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
You brought up 105, 107.
Yes.
As an example. I'm just curious, maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on that application. I do note we're dealing with a little bit of a difference in this case because, both the subject property at 96 and I think it's number 100. I mean, they're a little bit of a unicorn on the street because of the depth, right? They have much depth, right? We still have to deal with the variance for the lot width and understanding as it's experienced from the street. We don't know how far the lots go back, but one could argue that the additional depth does help in some cases when you're doing things like trying to accommodate parking and what have you. But I am interested about 103 and 105 that you brought up. But just kind of giving you the sort of premise that in looking at this, it's different in nature. They're not nearly similar in size. So how you said that they were similar. The logic for the refusal of the consent may apply to this, but
Correct.
How so?
Yeah, no, I appreciate your point. They are different lots. There are similarities as well. 105, 107 are roughly 140-foot depth, something to that effect.
Yeah, about that.
About that,
yeah.
versus something like 300. But my comment was really about the optics from the street and from the curb, from a frontage perspective. Yeah, I do totally acknowledge that there's a depth difference between the two properties.
Are the frontages, would you say that the frontages are similar between those properties?
Well, they will be if the severance is...
Yeah. Do you know what, just offhand, what those two properties, the frontages were that were refused?
That were refused.
Across the street.
Yeah, the 35.5 that I'd mentioned, yes.
Okay. 35
versus each.
Each, yes, I understand.
Versus 37 and change for the proposed here for 96.
Where the typical is about 50
feet, that's right.
Understood. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there is a similarity in my opinion with regard to how it looks from the street, but I do acknowledge that there's a depth difference between the two situations.
For sure. All taken into consideration. Any other questions from this speaker? No? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Did I miss anybody? All right. All right, let's take it back to our agent, Mr. Rubinoff.
To you, Mr. Chair, we have another speaker.
Oh, we
online.
do. Fantastic. Okay.
Who would? Can I
Good
just,
morning.
Mr.
Can you
Chair,
hear
can
me?
I just double check something? The address notes that it was also associated with the previous speaker, so we just want to confirm.
Yes, yeah, let's clarify. I see 2 at 94 Churchill.
Correct. My name is Winston Marr at 94 Churchill Avenue.
Okay. Just be mindful, we have had a speaker from this address already. I've provided 5-minute speaking time. Are you, do you live at the same property as Mr. Flood?
Yes. No, no. I live
Oh.
next door to 94 Churchill.
All right. Thank you for that clarification. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair and committee members. My name is Winston Marr. I live with my family. I'm speaking also on behalf of my wife at 94 Churchill Avenue. I'm sorry, I'm unable to attend in person. I do also object to the variances in height and the separation of the property into 2. My concern is in many ways is brought up with the narrow driveway, shared driveway, snow removal issues, and the garbage location that is being proposed that is behind the proposed parking spots. And that's quite far deep as it is. And if they're planning to extend the driveway even further, it's quite far down the property. I don't expect it be reasonable for them to use the garbage designated area because it's just too hard it's too far away from the house. And because of the front yards being as small as it's going to be, I would expect that the garbage will bins will be located there. There's no real good solution of having garbage bins in front of people's house. I understand that, but that is also to be aware that you will now have a smaller frontage, and then there's going to be garbage bins located there. So that's a bit of a concern. Coming out this morning from the rain, there was also a huge ponding in front of the driveway of that property. Again, that's unusual rain that we had, but then we're encountering unusual weather patterns. So having the type of driveway that's being proposed and parking in the backyard can bring a lot of concerns in if it gets moved forward. So that's my main issues. I also have an issue of being the height of the house, the variance change, and then moving it closer to my property at 94 Churchill Avenue. So I do oppose that part. I understand that there is a need to, as houses change hands, people do, of course, want a larger living space. I live in a bungalow. I understand that if I ever sell my property, I'm pretty sure that it's going to be tore down, redeveloped, and so forth. But if it's within the variance, I normally don't have too much issue with that. That's all I really have to say. Thank you for your time. I do hope that you're able to hear me clearly.
Yes, we can hear you very well. Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? All right, no questions. Okay, staff, do we have any other speakers? No other speakers. We've heard from everybody here today in the gallery. Let's go back to Mr. Rubinoff.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
Could we ask Mr. Rubinoff, in addition to the other things he's going to speak about, could he address the forestry memo that's in our agenda? not the conditions. The conditions are clear, but the memo is asking for substantial changes to the proposal. I don't know what those are and whether those are things that Mr. Robinoff is prepared for. So some clarification on his response to that would be helpful.
Okay, very well.
Yes, thank you, member. There is a correspondence from Forestry that was submitted yesterday, just a letter from them. I don't know if you have that, staff, that if you could put that up, but the issues that they presented of concern were addressed and that they are satisfied with, if you go, yeah, if you can, see if I can say. It would be, yeah, okay, so it says here, the one previous to this actually refers, there was another memo, but basically they were satisfied with the modified arborist report that was submitted, and that they just can't deal with it until the severance is completed. And that's what the comments were. Their previous notifications, we had spoken to them constantly throughout, trying to address all their concerns, and at the end they were happy with that. Is there another? I'm just wondering if maybe go down a little bit, because I do want to kind of address. Yeah. Maybe further down, it might be the last couple of pages. Okay, and one more. Or is that maybe that's it? Yeah, anyways, one of the things, I mean, there is a condition of forestry on this file, but I just want to address the fact that the forestry department and us have been through this review, and they are now telling us that they're just waiting for us to submit final. You know, we've submitted the arborist report, we've submitted the application. That they were waiting on the report, that they had no additional concerns with regards to this. We are maintaining all those trees along the perimeter of the property. It's very clear that there's no intention, and especially with trees that are protected trees, they cannot be removed. So just to be clear that we do follow the requirements of forestry. It is a condition of any application. You know, the right of way, there's a question about the right of way. That's not actually anything other than lines to indicate where the right of way extends to. The driveway stops with a slight bump beyond the parking spaces. There's plenty of room for snow storage. There's no, if that were to ever be a case. Transportation reviewed this, and I've read through their notes. They in their report have no objections to this application. They were clear that the driveway width was adequate to go back there. They just asked us to make sure there was an ability to turn and drive out, and that has been accommodated for. We've really made efforts to maintain. It's a single curb cut coming into the property. So primarily, instead of having two driveways, we have one. So there's more street, shall I say, parking space along the street and whatnot. You know, obviously, it's a deep property. I mean, it could be extended parking if you know, the neighbors mentioned about adding more parking spaces on that. I'm not sure that that's something that's, you know, desirable, but I'm just saying that we're minimizing the impacts of trees in the front. We're providing adequate parking in the rear. There is no active plan for a garden suite. And if there was anything related to a garden suite in the future that required variances, we would be back at committee. But certainly, this has been a very thoughtful process to meeting with the various departments in the city and really trying to address all their concerns, and also respecting the neighbors in any way we can. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Rubinoff. Questions, Mr. Schwartz?
Yeah, my question is about your relations with the neighbors. Did you meet with the neighbors?
So my client had he knocked on doors and there was no one responding. There were some discussions, I understand, in the backyards with some of the adjacent neighbors about plans. One of the neighbors wanted to purchase his backyard, so there were some discussions with them. Some of the people who spoke today, but there were efforts made, but there was no reciprocity on that.
I just don't understand that, because we've got so many neighbors here today. I don't understand why you wouldn't meet with them.
The efforts were made he did knock on doors. He did try to meet with them. People have a tendency to not want to answer a door. And I don't know if it's a COVID response or if it's just I know what this is and I don't want to see it. But my client did reach out.
Yeah, I just want to follow up with this, because I know somebody is raising their hand, and we've already heard from the neighbors, but I just don't buy that. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Colleague. I think it's a key lot. You're dealing with like at least 6-7 immediate neighbors. I don't buy that. I think you're not approaching the neighbors, but I agree with you.
Okay, I can tell you that they've all been properly notified of the variances. The drawings have been posted on AIC. There's been efforts made, but if it's I don't know that there's that there would be mitigations forthcoming that would have any impact on the variances presented before you. I mean, the variances, we have 6 variances for one house, 2 related to the driveway width, 2 related to the windows above the eaves line, and side yard on one side. We're not talking about a lot of variances. We have been in touch with transportation, forestry, and of course planning to go through this. And we feel that what we're presenting here is something that has been scrutinized substantially.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't want to let you off the hook for this, because I appreciate you met with all the planning and related approval authorities, but I just feel that you could have done more with the neighbors, that's all.
All right, let's leave it there. Mr. Deputy Secretary Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to a quick reminder that there is no obligation or requirement for the applicant to consult with the neighbors, although we highly recommend it. It certainly isn't a test on the merits of the application in any way.
I'm not saying that his application is fatal just because he didn't meet with the neighbors, but just to support what our staff person has just said, that the city does highly recommend it, and it would be nice if some of these issues, even if they were unresolvable, would have at least been fully addressed with the neighbors, so that we don't have such confrontation. I wouldn't say it's heated confrontation, but we have obviously a difference of opinion, and it would have been easier for us as a committee to deal with it had there been more of a discussion. I'm not saying it's fatal to the application. I haven't decided yet, but I wouldn't make my decision solely on that. It just would have been better. That's all.
Any other questions at this time? No? Okay. Mr. Rubinoff, thank you very much. It looks like I'm ready to take this into committee for a brief discussion, followed by a motion. Thank you. All right. Okay, let's take this into committee now. Who wants to get us started? Perhaps comments? Yes, Mr. Nipville.
I'll start. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yeah.
Based on the applicant's proposal, what we've heard from the residents, and I think the residents were very well prepared. Thank you for that. And planning's analysis, I personally do not have difficulty with the consent. I think the consent has merit. I'm not as confident with the layout that's here and therefore the implications of the consent on the variances. To my colleague's point about consultation with the neighbors, it appears that this rear parking lot, for a variety of reasons, even though it was well-intentioned to save trees at the front of the property, needs further analysis. Everybody that wrote in, commented on it, and all of the people that came to speak to us today commented on it, and I think their comments are valid, that it's a disruption into their properties, and I think that there perhaps needs to be a further discussion on how to resolve the parking issue in a manner that's complementary to the neighbors and to the neighborhood. So although I could support the consent, I'm not as favorably disposed toward the variances at this point in time.
It's a tough one because we have rear yard parking in the city, and actually I think there was a submission made that, the rear yard parking in a lot of cases is actually preferable to front yard parking. We see variances for, a front yard parking pad where it's not permitted, or, integral garage, and, we refuse it on the basis that say, well, you have rear yard parking. Yeah, well, so it's a tough one for me. I mean, we've got the one variance for the drive aisle, but then the question is, does the width of the drive aisle, affect the condition at the rear? If they provide a wider drive aisle, you still have to contend with cars at the back, regardless. It's kind of where I get hung up on that. It's not the type of parking, we call it a parking lot, but it's not also the kind of parking lot where you have a use where you have people coming and going all day, the residents. So that typically you'll have one person leave in the morning, one car come back in the evening. In some cases, people may not even take their vehicle out for the day, versus, a different use where you might have people coming and going throughout the day. It might be more of a disruption back there. A lot, and I would say, with respect to the consent, a lot of times it comes down to the width. These ones are a little bit trickier because you're not really, it's not a 50-foot asking for 25. They've actually, I think it's more closer to 35, right? And then to further complicate it, you've got all that depth at the rear, which you can argue to say, well, that helps to mitigate the impact because, you're not I hear the neighbors. I don't see as much concern, with variances for building depth, just because there is so much length back there. Other thoughts, Mr. Margiari?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with both comments. I think if it was an interior lot, I think the parking arrangement was actually a smart move to keep the front yard clear.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
considering that it's a key lot, I know there is no direct variance with that other than just the driveway width, but it's affecting properties on Tamworth Road, which I was hoping the owner and the applicant can, resolve that with those neighbors. I know it's not mandatory, but I think I don't have any issue with the consent, but I think the site plan is kind of unprecedented, and if it was supported by the neighbors, I would support it, but it's tough. It's tough to support it.
Ms. Sankar.
Yeah, just to add comments to this as well. I mean, I'm in agreement with what everyone's saying as well, but also looking at the fact that, we've got all of these different aspects of, the city, whether it be transportation or heritage or, ravine and urban forestry, as well as staff planning, that seems to be, with some conditions, but in favor of this. I think that further complicates it, right? Because we've got so many layers of eyes on it, and notwithstanding the very valid concerns that neighbors have brought up as well, I'm in consideration that they work that sort of out together, but there's nothing that's really fully compelling me to say no.
Might be down to you, Mr. Schwartz.
Well, I mean, what the applicant did was he focused in on those planning authorities that may have influence.
Yeah.
So what the applicant did was he consulted with those approval authorities, and when you look at it on paper, they didn't have big objections. But I think it's our job to think, does this really meet the tests? And is it different than what else is going on there? In other words, so what I think they're doing is I think that this it's not in itself a one-off changing, but is it part of a bigger picture? And is that what staff are really looking at? We should be looking at the bigger picture. And I think we've got to give some deference to the residents too. There's a lot of them here, and I don't think we necessarily have to agree with all the things that they've said. Some of them were, some of the points they raised were better than others. But you've got a severance here where one of the residents pointed out that it was refused on the street at T-Lab. Now, I don't have the case in front of me, but I
Separate address, but nearby.
Some separate address, but I can understand why that might happen. And I think that, we have to sort of think of that as part of the bigger picture too. Is this really something that is minor? If T-Lab refused something that's similar on the street, that seems to contradict what we have in front of us from staff. And therefore, I think it almost mitigates against the staff report. So I don't agree that we have to give a total amount of deference to the fact that in general we've got some favorable staff reports. I think it's really up to us to decide. I don't give a lot of weight to a favorable staff report when there was a TLAB decision. And where the nature of this development is different than what else is going on. So I agree with my colleague that when I first looked at it on paper, it seemed like a slam dunk. But then you listen to the residents, you know that there's some other things happening here. I think it's a little more complicated. I think that's why we're struggling with it, because otherwise, you know, we've had applications where there's tons of residents, and we know that it's really not so small. But I think this is a little bit bigger than some of those. So I'm not going to say what I'm going to do yet, but I just think that we have to look at this as maybe a little more seriously. And I hate to do that because I know we've been spending a lot of time on it, and we sort of want to move on with it. But I don't think that this, my gut says it's not minor. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, in the applicant's defense, it is challenging when you get the properties that have those adjacencies to another street, because you're not dealing with 2 neighbors or 3 neighbors, you're dealing with 5 or 6 or 7, right? And they all have a invested interest in that direct adjacency. So that it is more challenging in that regard, right? As a property owner with those types of adjacencies.
Well, that's it. Like, the people that back onto this property right now have, you know, like a beautiful nature preserve to look out on. And I can understand why they wouldn't want to lose that. And the applicant is bringing something that is sort of a bit of an intensification, which is actually, you know, from a planning perspective, a favorable thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is it minor? Has everything been, they don't have to go to bend over backwards, but is this really something that we as a committee should be comfortable with as being minor, meeting the 4 tests? It's not sitting completely well with me, and maybe that, you know, it shouldn't just be a gut feel. And so maybe I should defer to you planning people a little bit more, but something doesn't sit right about this with me. And this is why I went to the applicant about you know, meeting with the neighbors, because the neighbors, even though they may have, you know, their own interests, it doesn't sit right with them, and it doesn't sit right with me. And so I think, you know, if you as planning experts really feel that it does, then, you know, convince me. But otherwise, I'm not sold on this application.
All right. Okay, we've heard from all of our members on this one. I realize we spent a lot of time on it, but it's not a small file. Are any of our members prepared to put forward a motion, see where it goes? Yes, Mr. Nipfel.
I know we're considering them all together. I'm not comfortable with the full approval. What I would like to move is approval of the consent application, and to parcel out all of these comments for the portion of those comments that apply to the consent. I think the consent is supportable, and I do not have difficulty with that. So I would bring the motion to support and approve the consent, subject to.
Mr. Chair, sorry, I don't normally like to interrupt, but you cannot. There is a variance in the minor variance application that legitimizes the consent application.
Okay.
So you can't approve the consent on its own.
I just to clarify, I think you were looking at a modified approval of the variances, which would have included the lot width. Is that correct?
Actually, I was going to recommend a deferral of the variances because, like my colleagues, I think there needs to be further consultation with the neighborhood.
So same comment. You can't consider the consent on its own.
Okay, then I'm going to have to withdraw that motion.
Okay, so motion withdrawn.
So just to clarify, it's the frontage variance
Yes, yeah,
that legitimizes the consent.
yeah. And no variance for area with this application, so we'd just be looking at the frontage. Anyone else with a motion? Yes, Ms. Sankar.
Okay, so this may not be popular, I know, amongst my colleagues, but, and in, understanding, what was said by the numerous residents, as well as, given the explanations provided by the applicant here today, I think I'm going to motion to approve this application and approve the consent as well as the minor variances. And I'll make that subject to forestry. There was no comments, no objections from Heritage, so I'll make that also subject to transportation and engineering, the memo, as well as subject to the staff report, the planning staff report.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, can I just clarify, there are heritage or there is no heritage?
Heritage has
There's no
recommendations.
heritage.
They just
Did they
recommendations.
make a rec?
Heritage has a recommendation,
sorry,
so I just
yes,
want,
so
I
then
just want to
subject
clarify,
to
Ms.
them
Sankar,
as
apologies for jumping in.
That's okay. That's really good that you, because I looked at it, saw no objections, and I didn't see the recommendation. So also subject to heritage recommendations, and this is no disrespect at all to the huge efforts made by the neighbors, but I just feel in terms of just the explanation, me going through the application itself, and just the explanations that were provided, I feel that these are things that they could sort of work out privately. I'll just put it there. That's my motion.
Ms. Sankar, just to clarify, did you as well include the conditions? You noted conditions. Did you mean community planning report?
Yes, I
Capture
did,
those as well.
state that.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
So we've got a motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder for that motion?
Before I second that, I want to mention that this is definitely not an easy decision, but I second that because I think I examined the application with the 4 test. I believe it meets the 4 test, and also I think it's the variances are minor. It's a right proposal for the neighborhood. I know it may not be pleasant for the immediate neighbors. It would be much easier to support it if we have neighbor support. And I was hoping the owner could have discussed this with the neighbor before, but I second that. I think it's a supportable application.
Okay. We have a seconder to the motion. All in favor? All right, that motion passes. Opposed? Mr. Schwartz and Mr. Nitfeld. Okay, the motion carries. The application is approved. Let's take a 10-minute relief break. Time is 12:06. We will resume at 12:16. All right, we're back. We're having a few technical difficulties, but we have since resolved them. Thank you for your patience, everybody. Okay, we left off at item number 4, which I believe we are just looking to close this file.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do have a piece of correspondence from the owner that indicates he would like to close the file, and we'll put that up on your screen just to make sure committee is aware
Very
of
good.
it, and we'll have it on the record then.
All right.
So why don't you take a moment to take a look at the letter? I say this because I just want to be ensure there is no speaker that is online that we can see, either the owner or the neighbor.
Yep. Pretty straightforward to me. Any questions? None? All right. Okay. Do we have a motion to close this file? I should say this is item number 484 Brookview Drive. The application was to construct a garden suite above an existing garage with 4 variances before it. Looking to just withdraw that file now. Mr. Nitfeld.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd move to close the file in response to the applicant's wishes.
All right. Do I have a seconder? Mr. Maggiari, all in favor? That's unanimous. That file is closed. Thank you. All right. Item number 5, 47 Dallas Road. The purpose of the application is to construct a new detached dwelling with an integral garage and walkout basement. Variances for east and west side main wall height, number of stories, platform area, lot coverage, front yard landscaping, and front yard soft landscaping. On file, I see material from the applicant and a staff report from community planning. We have our agent or applicant with us.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. This is Kwok Wai Leong. The address is 40 Bloomfield Avenue, Toronto, M4L2G3.
All right, very good. Okay, I just want to confirm before you get going. Just want to confirm, staff, we have a neighbor online. Nobody in person. Okay, sir, before you get going, I just want to clarify, you are aware of the community planning report. They're recommending elimination of 2 of the variances?
Yes, I did discuss with staff, and then we agreed to delete item number 5 and 6 regarding to the front yard landscaping and the softscape. And also, we are agreed to put on the 5x screen at the rear deck.
Can you just restate that last part?
Okay. Planning staff recommended to put a 1.5 meter 5x screen at the rear deck.
Oh, I see. Yeah, let's just...
So we agree with that too.
Yeah, so just to clarify, sir, please interrupt if I'm mistaken, but we're going to remove variance number 5 and number 6, and that is in line with the recommendations of community planning. And actually, now that I've got the report in front of me, I believe you're also in agreement to provide permanent opaque screening along the west and east sides of the rear second-story deck for 1.5 meters. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, very good.
That's correct.
Okay. Just give us a moment here.
Sure.
Okay, and just to confirm with staff, we don't, our other speaker is not online. Okay. All right, before we get going, I'm going to ask my colleagues if they have any questions or concerns to raise. I should also ask, if not, whether we require a full presentation on this item. Just give me a moment to staff. Can we just make sure I just want to be able to see Ms. Sankar. Oh, I see her up on the screen. Okay, very good. No questions or comments. Okay. All right. I don't think we need a presentation from you. It looks like we can proceed to a committee, but if there's anything you'd like to add, please do so.
Well, I'm wondering if you do have a chance to review my the support documents that I uploaded.
Yes.
If you
Yes,
do,
we have.
then yes, then I don't have anything to add on to the presentations or the no more
Okay.
comments on this.
Yeah, okay, very good. Yeah, let's take this into committee. I maybe just start us off by saying some of the concerns that I did have since been addressed via the work that the applicant did with community planning. So I'm just glad to see some of those changes. I'm also glad to see the use of privacy screening at the rear. I think it's appropriate given this, given the condition. Any comments from my colleagues? Mr. Nipville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think with the changes that were negotiated with planning, this is quite an acceptable application. I personally don't have any difficulty with it. I think it fits in reasonably well with the neighborhood.
All right. Any other comments? Otherwise, maybe Mr. Nipville has a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move approval of the application subject to the removal of the two variances that are recommended by planning, which I believe are variances 5 and 6, and the addition of a condition about screening on the rear deck.
Opaque screening to a height of 1.5 meters?
Yep.
All right.
As noted in planning report.
Very good. Okay, do I have a seconder? Yes, Mr. Martiari, all in favor? All right, that is unanimous. Your application as amended is approved, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Moving along, item number 6, 125 Pleasant Avenue. The purpose of the application is to construct a new dwelling. Variances for side main wall height, lot coverage, number of stories, main pedestrian height, number of platforms, platform area, as well as 2 variances for east and west side yard setback. On file, I see material from the applicant. We have our applicant or agent with us.
So representing my client, owner of 125 Pleasant.
All right. I should also say, staff, we have a community planning report as well. Can we pull that up on the screen? All right. I should ask the applicant or the agent, did we got your name and address?
Yes, Ms. Mozafari from Hyphen Studio, 3429 Youngest Street, unit number 5.
All right. And do you have any changes to the application today?
Before I present my case, there are some improvements on the requested variances. Variance number 4.
Yep.
Is reduced to 1.42.
1.42.
Yes. And variance number 6 reduced to 20.34 square meter.
20.34 square meter. And that is variance number 2, you said?
Variance number 6.
Sorry, variance number 6. Okay. Any change to variance number 7 or 8?
No. If I go through the requested variances and explain the situation and our
Absolutely.
proposal, I believe you
Okay.
can see why we are asking for this variance. If the staff can kindly put the site plan of our drawings on the screen. This is a very a straightforward application. I believe all the requested variances are in keeping with other approved cases in the neighborhood. For variance 1, we are asking for almost a foot wall height on the side main walls. Variance number 2, 2% of lot coverage, which is very usual in this area. Variance number 3, 5, and 6 are basically in consequences of one single item. This is a regular home, 2-story above garage, but since the basement is considered as the first floor, the whole application is considered as a 3-story application. And consequently, the rear deck is considered as a balcony, which generates the variance number 6 for the area of the balcony. If this was a deck at the first floor instead of second floor, we wouldn't have this variance. And also number 5, since the rear deck is considered a balcony, then the actual balcony on the second floor for the master bedroom is another balcony, and there are 2 balconies looking to the rear wall, located at the rear wall in total. Variance number 4, we reduced the height of the first floor above established grade to 1.42, and which is only 10 inches above allowed. And for variance number 7 and 8, if you look at the site plan, on the west side, we are asking for 5-foot side setback instead of 6. And in compared with the existing situation, that dashed line that shows the existing building, we are improving the existing side setback. And we have the same number, 5-foot side setback, which is a decent one all the way to the rear. On the other side, that we are proposing 4-foot setback, it's only for the front half of the building, and at the rear, we have 2.2 meter setback for the main building and also the deck to the property line. And if you see the neighboring property, we have tried to somehow, because the east neighbor's building has a step back on the wall and there is a big side yard on the side, and we have tried to somehow do the same thing on our side. So only the front portion has this setback, and the rest is not only complying with the requirements, but also have more setback. And we have seen the staff report. Unfortunately, there was a situation on this file. Staff usually communicate their concerns before they send any report to the committee. And that was the intention of the planner of this case as well. But unfortunately, they have sent their concerns to a wrong email address. There was a misspelling in the email address that they used. So we never received their concern, and we never had a chance to have any back and forth with the planner before they issued their report. As a result, we only saw the staff report when it was already uploaded on the file. And since then, we had a back and forth with the planner. I submitted that supportive document to committee, and if the staff can show that document, I really appreciate. In discussions with the planner, we made improvements to variance number 4 and 6, and also in regards to the side yard, to make sure that specifically for the east side, we don't continue that side setback all the way to the rear, and we don't change the configuration of the building. We suggested to tie the site plan to the application. And also we have proposed 5-foot height privacy screen on the east side of the rear deck. As you see on the west side, we have 7.5 meter distance to the lot line. And I believe there is no need for privacy screen on the west side. The staff in their email confirmed that they are okay with these changes, and they believe that these improvements supports the general intent of the bylaw. But
Final words?
unfortunately, since the deadline, they didn't submit any new report. If the committee can put the record of this communication through email that I submitted to the committee yesterday on the screen, I really appreciate, so you
All
can
right.
see
Let's
the proof of our communication and back
let's
and forth
get
with
up, but
the.
I'm gonna have to cut you there because you're a full minute over. All right, I have a question. I'm looking at the staff report. They're asking for privacy screening on both sides. You're suggesting it on one of the two sides. I just want some clarification here. There is also a second platform as well off of the bedroom, right? Is a privacy
Yes.
screening proposed up there as well?
No, we can do that, but we don't have anything yet because it's just a small balcony for the master bedroom. It's not a big platform for public gatherings or huge number of people gathering there. The width of the balcony, I believe it's only 2 foot 6 inches. It's just a small balcony for a smoking or have a morning coffee.
Yep.
And even the planner didn't have any concern with that balcony. And for the first floor rear deck, yes, he's in his report, he's suggesting a privacy screen on both sides. But when I talked to him on the phone, he took a look at the site plan, and he agreed that with this big distance of 7.5 meter
Okay, fair enough.
to the side lot line on the west side, there is no need for the privacy screen on that side.
All right, and which is the best drawing to refer to those platforms?
If you can zoom on this, I submitted the revised drawings 2 days ago and also yesterday, along with that communication that I had with the planner. And
Let's
the
just pull up
changes
the drawing, because the drawing I'm looking at right
shown.
now, it doesn't.
Yes, this one.
Let's.
If you go to the next page, there, 5-foot height privacy screen on the east side, and the projection of the deck is reduced to 12 feet. Consequently, the area of the deck is reduced to 20.34 square meter.
Okay.
And also at the front,
you-
the porch is lowered.
Do we have an elevation drawing of it?
Yes, all the elevations are updated as well, and all the changes are shown in revision plots.
Let's pull that
Here,
up, because I'm looking at elevation drawing. I've got half of this, or portion of this rear structure that is just cut off the drawing.
Here you can see that 5-foot privacy screen at the rear.
Yeah, hold on. Can we go over, slide over as well? Or is that the end of the drawing? Okay.
Yes, that's.
Do you have a drawing that shows the entirety of the structure that you're proposing?
That where the drawing is cut is almost at the end of the deck. You
Okay.
can only the steps are not visible.
Yeah, it's a bit,
but
it's
the
a
deck
representation
is,
issue, because you're here asking for a variance for a structure, but you've cut off that structure in your drawings. So I don't have a full, there's not even a full drawing of the structure from an elevation standpoint. I should ask, like on that drawing, I see a guardrail, like on plan versus what I'm seeing in your elevation are different. I see the guard on the second floor of the elevation extends all the way back. What's the point of that if it's intended as, to only be accessible, a foot and a half or 2 feet off of the rear main wall?
If, yes, if you go to the second floor plan, you can see that this is usually what we do for the beauty of, because my client wants the main floor rear deck to be covered. So we have like a canopy over the rear deck. And at the same time, we are not using that that entire space as a balcony. So the accessible area is limited to 2 feet 6 inches by another set of the railing, but just to keep the beauty of that canopy and the look of it, we have another railing around that balcony, but this is the second floor balcony. The privacy screen is on the main floor rear deck.
Okay, so there's no roof over the second floor. It's the roof just over the first floor balcony, the ground level balcony, I should say.
Exactly.
It's hard to say.
Exactly.
It's just very hard to
If
see
you,
from the drawing.
If you look at the rear elevation, I think it's very clear here. The second floor balcony, it doesn't have any roof, but the rear deck
The rear deck does.
in
I see.
this case is considered as another balcony, is covered with that canopy.
Okay, fair enough.
And we are proposing a privacy screen on the east side of the main floor deck, because the second floor, as I mentioned, is just a narrow, more like a Juliet balcony, just for a.
Understood. Okay. Do we have any questions for our agent? Yes, Mr. Nitfeld.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry to go back to the deck and the balcony again. Can you clarify for me why you need such a large main floor deck? Because it's not as though it were on the ground and it wasn't creating a privacy problem. It's elevated substantially from grade. And as you've indicated in your conversations with planning, they're concerned that you've indicated that they changed the report. We haven't seen the changed report, but instead of having a privacy screen on both the east and west sides, which is what planning sent us, you say they've only suggested on the east side. But my question is a larger one. Why does the deck need to be that big at all? And the second point is the point that I believe the chairman was trying to get to, and that is you've got a deck, and then you've got a roof, a canopy over it, and on top of that canopy, you've got a small portion, 4 square meters, that you're proposing for a balcony, but you put the railing of the balcony all the way out to the edge of the roof, which is substantially larger. It begs the question of how difficult it's going to be to monitor whether that balcony on the second floor is, as you say, 4 square meters, or if in fact the applicant ends up using the entire roof.
As I mentioned, that railing around the second floor canopy is just for the beauty of the rear elevation, to have the railing around the actual structure of the canopy. But we are also okay if you want to put a condition that we just put the railing for the limited accessible of the balcony, not all around the second floor canopy. And for the rear deck, as I mentioned, when I talked to the planner, it seemed that it was the first time that he was looking at the site plan, because I believe what he was suggesting in the report to have privacy screen on both sides was only based on the variance, but when he looked at the site plan and he saw that we have 7.5 meters setback from the property line on the west side, and the rear deck is actually looking to our own walkout. He agreed that it's not necessary to have a privacy screen on this side. Again, if you still think that it is necessary, we are okay with that, but with this decent setback and big distance to the property line, it doesn't seem necessary. And for the size of the deck, as you see, the width of the deck is even less than building's width. And by proposing that 12 feet depth for the deck, we are trying to just have a furnishable space on the deck that my client can at least put like a dining table or sitting area there. And with that 2.2 meter setback to the property line on the east side, and that privacy screen proposed on the east side, I believe we are satisfying any concerns regarding overlook and privacy. And as you see, the rear yard is very decent. We have more than 16 meter rear setback, and proportionally, this is not a huge deck, considerable in compare with the size of the rear yard. And I believe that's not also a concern for the adjacent neighbors as well.
Okay, does that answer your question, Mr. Neufeld? Okay, and I just a technical question here. It says variance number 6, I'm just looking at the wording, the area, the 23.91 meters, which has been reduced, that reduction applies to both platforms, right? The variance would permit for both?
The platform on the third floor, it's not a variance. It's already less than 4
It's
square
already
meter,
that, okay,
and
okay.
the accessible area is shown, and it's less than 4 square meter. Technically, it's considered at the 10th floor because the basement is the first floor, so the main floor is
Understood.
the second. That's the variance applies to that. It says at or above the second story, and then the master balcony is basically at the third floor, which is not a variance, and it's less
Understood.
than 4 square meter.
Understood. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any other questions? Mr. Mazzieri, yes?
Sorry, the square meter you're seeking for variance number 6 is 20.34, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We have reduced the decks by 2 feet from 14 to 12 feet. So consequently, the area is reduced to 20.34.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. All right. It looks like we're ready to take this into committee. All right. Thank you. Let's take this into committee. Yes, Mr. Marzieri.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thanks. I don't have any concern with this application. I think it's supportable as amended, so I'm ready to make a motion if my colleagues don't have any comment.
I'm just curious, staff were recommending refusal of the side yard setback variances, the difference of 151 to 18. I guess.
Yeah, I had the same concern, but with the applicant explanation, I'm convinced that it's minor, and I think the further setback that they showed at the back, I would just tie it to the side plan.
Okay.
If I might, the other thing that I'm concerned with is the 4 square meter balcony on the second level. This is confusing because, as the chairman indicated, he at one point thought it was the deck and the balcony are the same. They are structurally, but she's only proposing to use 4 square meters of the roof as the third floor balcony. I think the proposal that we discussed during the questioning of her putting the balcony railing around the 4 square meters to delineate it would make it easier to implement, and I think that might.
I agree with you. Is there any updated drawing that showed like? Can we tie it to?
I frankly, I've got concern with there's one variance that would permit that balcony altogether. I think there's some significant challenges with this application that have to do with privacy and on-look. Normally, I'm, the one to step in and say, do we really need privacy screening on both sides when we have such an ample setback? But it's so high, and the adjacent properties are so low. Like they're one-story bungalows, right? Most of these houses. Also, the projection into the backyard, coupled with the fact that they do have I do take her submission that there's a good amount of depth there, but there isn't that much depth. And if you look at where the property, the rear main wall, and those platforms are landing, they're right in the middle of the backyards to the adjacent neighbors.
And it's a major structure.
So I've got concern with privacy, frankly, on both sides. I can see why they want the privacy screening on both sides. I think it's desirable to permit a second balcony off of the master bedroom, even at 4 square meters, given the amount of on-site and overlook. I don't know. That's a tough one for me.
Well, the question that I didn't have answered, and I don't know that the applicant has an answer, is it seems to me that when you develop a floor plan like this that elevates the main level so far above grade, and then you go out and have a deck, that deck on grade would not be a problem. But that is a very big deck when it's floating up in the sky like this.
Yep.
So my question was, irrespective of planning departments, well-intentioned and welcome concern for privacy, why do you need such a big deck when it's that high up in the air? If it were on the ground, there'd be no privacy issues.
Or have a...
But it's way on the ground. And then it has a roof on it, and then there's another balcony on top of the roof.
Yeah, and it just adds to the massing in the structure. And you look at the projection to the adjacent neighbor, you see where their rear main wall is. This house goes back double, right?
Yeah.
And not to say that there's not going to be future development, but then you exacerbate that by the elevated deck and the platform and the railing on top of the roof, which just really adds massing. I don't buy it's really for aesthetic. I don't think there's anything aesthetic about it.
Well, and it doesn't really, and then how do you monitor the 4 square meters if you put the railing out there?
Well, you got to take them at their word on that. They move the railing, that's a 311 call. But I just don't see, just given the size of that structure, it's a tough one. Because even at 4 square meters, you're stepping out there, it's just such a, the sight lines are so difficult into those backyards to control. So, I don't know.
Mr. Chair, I just want to note, if you're contemplating and tying it to plans, you got to be very clear which plans you're tying it to, because I understand there are revised plans as well.
Yep.
So I just want to be absolutely sure which plan
Mr.
you're
Rodriguez,
contemplating, should you approve this application.
Yeah, I'd be willing to support the, generally speaking, in supportive of the application. I think the side yard setbacks are acceptable, given the fact that it's not a straight setback all the way back, the building. So I would ask that we tie that to site plan if those variances were approved. Yeah, the revised, well, we'll put a date, yeah. But I struggle with, I guess with the platforms.
I don't like the second floor deck, but I don't know how we can stop that from being like extended in future. I don't know.
Well, there's one of the variances that are before us would permit a second platform off of the rear.
It allows 2 platforms. The variances allows 2 platforms where the bylaw only allows 1.
Yeah. And I think we're already being generous with the first platform at 20 square meters, given the height and given some of the overlook.
I don't accept that. I think that's way too big for an elevator.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the 2.5 meters is really where to land it at the, the projection, and then you go down and you have a lower deck. Yeah. I don't know why we don't see more of that. Everybody wants to have it right off of their. Yeah. So you know what? I probably have to side with Mr. Nitfeld on that. Even off the ground level, I just feel like that this is not. You can have one or the other, but it's really hard to have both, you know? You want to raise up the ground level as high as it is. You can't then, and you want to go all the way back and maximize your building depth. To go and now add a structure and a canopy and a railing above that is a lot, in my opinion. That's my thoughts. I'll leave it there.
I can put forward a motion and see
Yeah,
how far it goes.
please do. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve this application as amended with variance number 4 to be reduced to 1.42 meter high, variance number 6 to be reduced to 20.34. I would refuse variance number 5. And also I would tie it to the site plan with inclusion also with 5-foot privacy screen. I agree with the applicant that it's just on east side. It doesn't it's not required on the west side.
Which variances, are there specific variances you would like to tie to the site plan?
Yes, the side yard setbacks.
Okay, 7 and 8.
Yes, 7 and 8.
Substantially in accordance with?
And also urban forestry condition number 2.
All right. We need a date, and Ms. Sankar has her hand raised.
Can they help me with the
Seconder.
drawing set?
Okay.
I just have one drawing set in front of. Yes. Yeah, can you put it up and then we can just include the date? April 1st? No, I want to see the site plan. The date on the site plan. Yes, here. Can you zoom in? I can't read it from here. November 2024. Yeah, the one that we had in the package is also November 2024. So I think it shows the further setback at the back. So I'm fine to tie it to that site plan. November 2024.
All right, that's your motion?
That is my motion.
Okay, I believe you have a second by Ms. Sankar. I just want to confirm. Yes, she's going to second your motion. Okay, all in favor? All right, opposed? All right, the motion fails. Mr. Niffel, I'm going to turn to you because I think maybe you and I are on the same page where I think we're close, but I think you might have a slightly different motion.
I'm sure I do.
Okay.
I'd like to move approval of the modified application as well with the variances that have been changed. Subject to not approving, I do not recommend approving variance number 3.
Number of stories?
I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, I just wanted to clarify.
2 balconies. It's
that would be number 5. But I'll give you a minute just to pull up the notice. Yeah.
Number 5 and number 6. I'm recommending that they both be refused, and that the remainder be as revised, and that the planning conditions about screening the rear decks be also imposed as conditions. And forestry condition number 2.
As in the planning.
Actually, now, perhaps, sorry, you just caught me on that. I don't need the screening because I'm not approving the deck size.
I was going to say.
pardon me, I don't need the screening condition. Because I'm recommending that the variance number 5 that allows for there to be 2 decks or platforms be not approved, and that the substantially enhanced and large deck, rear balcony, main floor, 23.91 meters square, it also not be approved. So basically my condition, or my approval, does not include approval of those 2 variances.
Okay. And subject to the modifications made on the floor, which
Yeah.
staff, you have those, number 1 and 6.
And screening, forestry number 2.
Forestry number 2. All right, we've got a motion. Yes? Correct. And are we tying the side yard to the site plan?
Yes, please.
Substantially in accordance with?
So the difference is just variance number 6. So
It's-
you're refusing.
that's it.
To my.
He's refusing the
you're
platform.
refusing variance numbers.
I think it's way too large when it's so elevated, but that's my reasoning.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not to say they can't have a platform when they come out the door, go down the stairs, and have a nice big deck closer
Absolutely,
to
yeah.
ground level.
Yeah, but then it doesn't have privacy issues.
And they don't have the privacy issues. Okay. All right, so we've got our motion. Do I have a seconder? Okay, Mr. Schwartz, thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Ms. Sankar is opposed? Okay, that motion carries. The application as modified is approved in part. All right. We have 2 more items left in our morning slot. Item number 7, 54 Blue Forest Drive. The purpose of the application is to construct a front and rear addition along with a second floor addition over the existing single-story dwelling. Variances for front main wall height, rear main wall height, building length, building depth, front yard setback, and main entrance height. On file material from the applicant, a memo from Ravine Natural Forestry Protection, and a memo from Urban Forestry. We have our agent or applicant with us.
Good afternoon, committee members, Mr. Chair. My name is Enzo Lacasano. I'm from Arch DWG, located at 1245 Caledonia Road on Toronto.
Sir, I just want to check with you. I presume you are aware of the Urban Forestry memo. They've concern with 2 of the variances?
Correct. Yes, we've been dealing with forestry, ravine, TRCA, and the staff report that planning has issued as well. But we have applications with forestry, with ravines and TRCA. TRCA approved our application based on the variances. Ravine has no comment. Forestry, we understand we have to work with them on the tree at the front of the building because we are requesting the removal of 3 trees that are fairly close to the building, the existing building. We worked with planning in regards to the height of the building to come to an agreement that it is acceptable.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to ask.
If staff wants to pull up the one of the photos that shows that front tree, that's the issue that forestry has. We had submitted a arborist report where he has stated that this tree is definitely in decline. It's the one at the front. It should be the first photo, I think. That's the rear of the building. Again, this property has an enormous amount of trees already. The clients have agreed to replace, obviously, the tree that it is in question. I think it's maybe one more. There you go. So that's the tree there. So the variances that forestry is referring to is one is the front yard setback, but and as planning states in their report, we're staying in line with the existing front of that garage. So that's the extent of the addition across the front of the house. So we're not going any further than the existing garage is now. Now, this tree has caused some major issues. One with the walking path to the house being a little dangerous, but also has caused foundation problems and weeping tile problems with its roots. Now, there are in the arborist report, they do state that the tree is in decline. There is rot, and you can actually see the little bump out on the left side. It's where a limb was removed after it was cracked during the ice storm, and I believe in 2013. But that area is now rotting. So there is an issue with that secondary limb facing the house, which is starting to separate from the main trunk, which is also stated in the report. But again, we have no issue with creating a condition to work with forestry. We do want to work with them. Now, with regards to the other variances, 3 out of the 6 are really technical variances because the length is already the existing building. We're not going any further back than the existing building, and Ravine supports that, and so does TRCA. With regards to the height of the building, we surveyed 16 files that went to Committee of Adjustment in the area, and we're well under what has been approved in the area, and it ranges anywhere from 7.5 meters up to 9.45 meters, and we're requesting 8.01, which is well in keeping with the area. With regards to the front yard setback, again, we're staying in line with the existing garage wall, so we're not going any further forward. Now, the height of the main floor, this we did because, one, we were trying to achieve a bit more ceiling height in the basement. Currently, they have, I believe, 6'5" in the basement. We're trying to get a little bit more height. And we're only proposing an additional 5 risers. And if staff can pull up the photos, I think it was under additional, no, not those. It was additional supporting information. Yeah, those. So as you can see, these are literally 56 blue forest, 51 blue forest, 52 blue forest, and 48 blue forest. All have multiple risers to the main floor, exceeding the 1.56 that we're asking for. And again, a lot of the lots are graded down east of this property as well. And this is the one next door. And as you can see, there's the height to the main floor, it over exceeds what we're requesting. So I think all in all, we do meet the 4 tests, and this is very much in keeping with the area.
All right, thank you. Questions?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Can the applicant clarify? So your intention is to remove that tree because there's no way that that tree can be preserved with the front.
Correct. Yes.
And you're going to work with the
Yes, we do have an application to remove. So if staff can zoom in on the site plan. So there's 3 trees in question. The one in the front, as you can see, with the X.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's one at the back, directly behind the addition, just further down there. No, right behind the addition. There's an X through the circle. There you go. Yeah. So that one's being removed. And then there's one on the opposite side with another X, which is on the east side. Now, these trees are the ones closest to the existing building currently, which again are causing some major concerns, but also have caused major damage and has flooded out the basement of this house already. Again, as you can see, there is ample amount of trees on this property. But we will work with forestry in order to replace whatever trees that our client is willing to either pay in lieu or to plant more trees. But as you can see, there, especially at the rear, there's very little room to plant additional trees. So again, we will look at, or we will work with forestry to make this work.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? All right. Seeing as we have no other speakers, let's take this matter into committee. Mr. Nipville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this application is supportable, and I completely sympathize with the applicant, his position with the tree at the front door. It is, if it's diseased, and it's going to get worse, and it's already creating problems for the existing dwelling, I think it should be removed with some support from forestry as to what might be done to mitigate the removal. I noticed in the planning or the forestry report, although they are recommending against those two variances, they've said in the event that the variances are approved without change, urban forestry recommends that the application be subject to condition number 2. And unless my colleagues have disagreement, I would like to move approval of this application subject to condition 2 as proposed by forestry. It's a beautiful site. Clearly, these people care about vegetation, care about landscape, and are doing a beautiful job in maintaining it. And I think that this will continue on. They need to remove a damaged tree, and I completely understand that.
I'll jump in. I side with forestry on this one. My concern is that, you know, if the tree is in the condition that the applicant states it's in, then they need to go to forestry beforehand and work that out before they come to the committee, because forestry is basically saying to us they want that tree protected.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's rotting, it's causing all this damage, and it is what the applicant says, then why would forestry, you know what I mean? It's
Doesn't
like you have to
condition
take.
2 cover that, though, I think? That's my...
My understanding is it's up to us. If we're going to grant a variance, it's going to result in the removal of a tree. Forestry's not going to, I mean, they have the ability to, but my understanding is the department policy is that they're going to honor the variance. I don't have any indication from forestry saying we support the removal of the tree, and that's where I get hung up.
Okay.
It's a mature tree.
Sorry.
There's a, it really is the only mature tree in the front yard there.
Mm-hmm.
I think, this sort of, I have the OP policy running in my head about, how, new construction shall look at the kind of existing canopy and sort of work with the tree structure. I think that would have been.
I don't even think it's just new construction, though. As the applicant indicated, this tree's creating problems for the existing structure.
Yeah, well, they put forth that, but I don't have any indication from forestry that it is. They say that it is, right? It's.
I guess I'm.
No, sorry, Mr.
Excuse
Chair,
me, hold
we
on.
have an
We're
arborist
in
report.
committee. I can't have you chime in. So.
I understand your position.
I wish maybe they had taken some time to go to forestry and say, hey.
That would have been helpful, for sure.
Yeah, let's just remove it, because they have an outright request for refusal in this case.
Yeah.
And it's not a small, I mean, I look at it, it's not a small tree. Just from looking at the photos, I wouldn't say that's a tree that looks like that needs to be taken down. I could be wrong, I'm not an arborist.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, I look to forestry staff to be able to make that determination. I'm sure they looked at the arborist report themselves. So why if they look at the arborist report, would they go against and formulate a different opinion altogether? Is sort of where I get hung up on it.
Okay, yeah.
Other than that, no other. I mean, I don't have any other issues with the
No,
application.
of course, yeah.
It's just I get a little bit hung up on the tree. I don't know. My colleagues feel. I might just be a lone.
Well, we
lone
usually
ranger
don't.
on
We
this.
usually don't get this from a forestry report, do we?
We get maybe one or two of them a hearing, but it's not common that they recommend refusal unless there's a good reason for it.
Yeah. So what are
But
you
I
saying?
thought that there was another, sorry, I
Yeah,
just,
Ms. Eckert,
I
please.
thought I had seen an updated version where they don't recommend it anymore,
Oh,
et cetera, et cetera.
is that the case?
Is it me or am I in?
I don't see.
Staff, do we have,
Just if
can
you
we
could check
pull up
with
the
the
most
deputy
recent?
secretary treasurer, because yeah, as far as I know, and that's why I was wondering what's this whole conversation about, but they had changed their mind and it was removed from at least condition number 5. And so it is subject to forestry. I'm not sure. I was kind of confused why we're talking about this because I thought they changed their mind. But I mean,
I don't have that.
unless
I have this two-pronged approach in the Medina and the original forestry report, which is, the chairman's quite right, they're recommending refusal, but then they've said, however, if you go ahead and approve the variances, would you please add condition number 2? And which I personally assumed would allow for the kind of discussion that the chairman is suggesting needs to take place, and I agree with him.
so it's not on the April 2nd forestry report, or?
Mr. Chair, there was a revised memo for 108 Glen Forest.
Different file number.
Maybe I was looking.
Okay.
Okay, so I was looking at the wrong one for the forestry. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, the way I see it, if you have a tree on a property that is ill and needs to be taken down, this should be easy. Go to forestry, let them know that, have them confirm that the evidence that you're putting forth is indeed correct and supportable, and then have them withdraw that number 5 before committee. But the staff are telling us like something completely different than what the applicant is saying.
So are you suggesting that we refuse the application?
No, I'm just I'm in line with forestry staff. They're asking for refusal of the 2 variances related to that small addition on the front that would require the removal of that tree. I think is number 5.
It's two variances. It's
5 and 6.
Yeah.
Well, it would give him difficulty at the front
For sure.
for that, right? Or up, but it enables them at the rear. I just think it's,
Yeah, fair enough.
you'd almost wish, given the tree. Yeah.
You know what? Like, if we're told that a tree is rotting, I want some evidence. Like, just not, I don't buy it. You've got a staff report, staff, talked against that.
Yeah.
So I think we, or a forestry report. We don't have to agree with their recommendation, but I think factually we should agree with them. Factually, in the sense that they're talking about trees, they didn't say it was rotting. I think that we take trees as not rotting.
Nor do I think they're unreasonable that if they believed a tree needed to be removed for safety reasons, as the applicant put forth, then why would they force somebody to maintain a tree and go to the extent of writing an entire report advocating for retaining that tree when the evidence suggests otherwise? That's where I might have said, you know what, request a deferral. I need to talk to forestry staff more because we've got a clear
So, it's
misalignment
funny,
of facts.
like we hear people and people say things to us, but I think
Yeah.
you could support.
I could support a deferral if that's the objective. I don't think an approval with forestry's recommendation, which is to refuse those 2 variances, is doing anybody any favor. I don't think it allows the application to proceed, and it just makes the whole process very long. A deferral might actually introduce negotiation. That's fine. At least it doesn't put this in a loop that takes forever to get to it if the applicant's point.
I hate to defer everything today, but I'm kind of inclined to agree with you. Just because.
I mean, I'd say if
Well-
forestry comes back and writes the same report saying this tree is just fine, I gotta take the word of forestry
Yeah,
on it.
I'd rather, like, I mean, we've heard some things. We could approve it, we could refuse it, we could defer it. Since what the applicant said is effectively at odds with what forestry is saying, my inclination is to defer it. And let them iron it out. So
All right.
I'll bring a motion to defer, much as I hate to defer, but if we've got contrary information, I'd rather just defer it and let them work it out. So my motion is to defer. Because there seems to be a disagreement between what the applicant is saying and what is suggested by the report of urban forestry, and I'd rather they iron it out with urban forestry and then come back with a clean application. So that's my
Okay,
motion.
that motion, second by Mr. Netfeld, all in favor? Okay, Nadini, did you? Sorry, in favor of the deferral, Ms. Sankar? Is that? Yes, I'm thinking yes. You're on mute, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I'm not in favor of the deferral, so I'll stand alone on that because I just feel once you put it subject to forestry, they'll have to work it out, so.
Okay, so not in favor of the motion. That's, yeah, so, in favor of the deferral, let's just get hands again, just to confirm. Okay, opposed, Mr. Allison and Ms. Sankar. The motion carries, the application is deferred. All right, last item of the day. Morning. I said day, morning. Last item of the morning. Item number 8, 440 Melrose Avenue. The purpose of the application is to construct a new two-story detached dwelling. Got a number of variances in front of us. East side yard setback for a front platform, east side yard setback for a rear platform, east and west side yard setbacks for a building, platform encroachment into a front yard setback, number of stories, side main wall height, front and rear main wall heights, 2 variances for rear platform areas, front stair width, building length, front yard landscaping, and lot coverage. On file, material from the applicant. See a report from Community Planning, Urban Forestry, and a letter of objection from 436 Melrose Avenue. For agent with us.
Can I speak?
Hello.
Hello, yeah.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Victor Gilberg, Gilberg Group Inc., 33 Belvedere Crescent, Richmond Hill. I'm an architect and I'm representing the owner of the property, the agent for this application.
Okay, very good. Before we get going, I just want to confirm I have a second speaker on my list. I just want to confirm they're not part of your party.
I'm not aware about anybody else from
Mr.
my party who wants.
Okay, it's a neighbor's agent. I just wanted to confirm that. Okay, sir. And next, I'm going to ask if you have any modifications you'd like to make to the application.
Just before you go on, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
I'm gonna
indeed.
take a break,
So
I'm
we
just
discussed this.
I'm going to take a break from this one. I may as well take that break now rather than the middle.
Okay.
So I'm just going to break.
All right, Mr. Schwartz is going to step out for this item. All right. Okay, sorry. I asked, do you have any modifications for the application?
Yes, Mr. Chair, indeed, I have some modifications. So we discussed this application with planning staff, and we agreed to modify variance number 7 and number 8, reducing the main wall height to 8.6 meters, respectively, for both variances. front, rear, and both side walls. Also, I wanted to add that I read the objection letter from the neighboring property, and I think they have some valuable points regarding privacy. I discussed it with my client, and I think I advised to deal with it somehow. And the result, we decided to drop variance number 10 for platform above the second floor, which is balcony adjacent to master bedroom.
Okay, so
those are my modifications.
in addition to modifying variance number 7 and 8 to 8.6 meters, we're going to remove variance number 10?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, very good. All right. We do have another speaker, so I'm going to ask for a brief presentation from you, sir.
Absolutely. Okay, so I just briefly go through the variances we are requesting. So variance number 1 to number 5, they both dealing with reduction in side yard setback from 1.2 meters to 0.9 meters. So our rationale behind this is it's a narrow lot. Basically, the Melrose Avenue contains lots from 50 feet to 25 feet. So our lot is about 30. And 0.9 meter setback is very typical for this area. So we also think that we still have generous setbacks to both adjacent houses rather than the property line. Setback on west side is only applicable to garage portion, and then it's switched to 1.2 meters. Then our next variance, main wall height, as I already mentioned, will be reduced. Well, basically, the house is the most sort of modern architecture. That's why this variance is necessary to maintain the design of the desirable design of the house, and we still in compliance with overall height for the top of the roof. Variance number 6. And also, I would say, related to variance number 9 as well, it's the fact that basement is considered the first story. That's, again, it's very typical variance for the area. It's related to change in bylaw definition of the first story, which happened quite recently. So basically, to eliminate this variance, we have to dig deeper for the basement, which doesn't make sense because it's a tight condition, and we don't want to go into excessive shoring situation and hit the underground water. Yeah, then another variances are really small. It's proposed small proposed stair encroachment, and we have small increase in lot coverage of less than half percentage point. We have small increase in the building length, matching basically the length. If you look at the site plan, we're matching the length of the adjacent house at number 442. Driveway, yeah, basically we minimize the width of the driveway just to fit into the minimal size of garage door. I know that permeable pavement is no longer acceptable as the reduction of hard landscaping, but nevertheless, if committee thinks it's acceptable, we can suggest that driveway can be paved in permeable pavement to somehow mitigate the reduction in required landscaping area percentage.
All right.
Yeah, so that's basically my presentation. I would like to answer any questions you may have.
Yes, Mr. Nipville.
Thank you. This might be my mistake, but can we get the rear elevation up on the screen? Does that, so it suggests that there's a large balcony on the top floor, and that's the one you've removed, right?
I removed it, yeah.
Yeah. The one that's below it.
There will be just flat roof.
Okay, and the one that's below it on the main floor, on the plan it looks as though it's the same size as the one on the second floor, but here it shows as very small. Is this elevation correct?
No, this elevation is correct. It's exactly the same size. It's approximately the half of the width of the building, because it does not overhang. On the right side, we have a basement walkout.
And the reason that it's open, you don't have the stairs on, is that's where the stairs are on the side, right?
Yeah, the stairs is in
Two
the
panels
dashed
and then
line.
there's
You can see it's in.
There's two panels, and then there's an opening, but that's still on the balcony, and that's where the stairs go.
It's, yeah, that's where the stair goes down, exactly, yeah.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Other questions? All right, we have another speaker.
My name is Dino Angelakos. I'm representing the owners of 436 Melrose. I'm their son-in-law. I wrote the letter with my wife, their daughter. That's on file. First, I really glad to hear. I really appreciate what the applicant just stated about the second floor balcony, because that was a major concern. The only other two concerns we might have are items 2 and 9 variances. And I guess if we could look at drawing A1, I appreciate if you could show that one. I guess the client, my in-laws at 436, they've been there since the mid-70s. They've seen all these houses go up, and they don't object to change. The only concern would be the sheer height of things. Again, very much appreciated that the second floor or third floor balcony is being removed. The length of the house, it goes just as far back as 442 on the left. The bay window I know doesn't count, but the walkout from the second floor, the main floor, seeing as they have a large on-grade patio in the backyard, to the north. Again, the size of that balcony walkout from the second floor, is still more than twice the allowed. And I guess the other concern is, as we've talked about, as I've heard today, actually, a similar one a couple of items ago, was the height of this thing. It's approximately 8 or 9 feet above grade, which actually surpasses the fence by a couple of feet. So it literally does hover next to 436 Melrose. And as per drawing A1, again, 436 Melrose is probably one of the few remaining kind of houses that are original kind of thing. So that is kind of where they spend their entire summer, between the end of their house, as you can see, and on drawing A1, and their garage, kind of the kids with their sidewalk chalk, playing basketball there, patios, tables. That's kind of where they hang out. So again, super appreciated, and I'd really thank that decision to remove the second floor, but the main floor one is 0.9 meters away. The house being 0.9 meters away is what it is. There's no windows. That's fine. It's going to be a monster, but that's what's going on in the neighborhood. Ideally, as per variance 2 or request anyway, the 0.9 for the platform, 1.2 would be ideal, and the size of it getting back down to what the bylaw says, about 4 meters squared, then walk down to this very large on-grade patio. So again, respectfully, it's my in-laws plan to be there several more years, and us as well, and I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
All right. Questions? Okay, no questions. All right, thank you. Let's turn it back to the applicant. Yeah, I mean, for the agent, I hear what the neighbor is saying with respect to some overlook into the adjacent property. Perhaps you can speak specifically to some of those concerns that were raised.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I think neighbor had a point. I sort of agree with this. So I think we can eliminate variance number 2, maintaining 1.2 meter setback from the platform. I'm not sure if we can reduce it to 4 square meters, because this platform basically it's walk out from the kitchen. So normally people put barbecue there, and sometimes couple of chairs. So it's sort of part of the comfortable living in the house. But what I can propose is maybe we can tie up any decision to a privacy screen. We can create privacy screen on the east side of the platform. And that I think that will solve the problem, because basically privacy works both ways. I don't think my clients want to anybody observe they're sitting on this platform. So that's my proposal. So eliminate variance number 2 and privacy screen on east side of the platform.
All right, thank you. I know this is a little unorthodox, but I would like to hear from the neighbors spoken just regarding the suggestion of a privacy screen. And I'm just going to ask because I just put out there that, while privacy screens are helpful to mitigate on-site, overlook and privacy, they also create massing, right? Additional massing at the rear. I'm just curious from the immediate neighbor, their representative, their son, how they feel about the privacy screening.
Oh, thanks again for allowing me to give some feedback. That's a good point. Again, people will be at the level of about 8-9 feet above grade. Then there's people walking at that level. I guess the railing is at about 4 feet, if I'm not mistaken. You know what?
Any privacy screening, I mean, typically it's about 1.5 meters, and it just it's about 6 or so feet.
You know what? I really, it's hard to say because the afternoon sun is coming down that way. Well, we're rotating, of course. And you're right. Even if it's opaque, I will block light, air, etc. I think the owners of the future owners, whoever it is, 440 Melrose might end up putting a privacy screen if they don't like the kids playing basketball or what's going on 436. To be honest, I don't know that back and forth. So
these are things that you might also, if you feel comfortable, that can be worked out with a neighbor. It doesn't require a variance. We also just want to be careful of putting in conditions that you might turn around and say, oh, why did committee, add this condition? Both of us don't want it, right?
It goes from the floor level to 1.5. It doesn't start at the railing and go up 1.5.
No, from the floor length up to 1.5. So, and it would just be for that projection off on the side.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think, I think so.
Okay.
It was I was really concerned about the second floor, but now that's gone, so that's good.
That's fair enough. Okay, just for process, I just quickly go back to the agent, just ensure that there's nothing else. No issue, I guess then, if you were given approval to implement that privacy screening on the one side?
Yeah, I think yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. Let's take this now into committee. I'll just start off by saying it's actually really nice to see the agent or applicant amend a variance on the floor in response to a neighbor. It's rare that we have that. And actually, I'll just say I'm supportive of the application. My two concerns actually were the second floor deck, just given the privacy concern, but that's been eliminated. And then also, I think to mitigate some of the impact, I wasn't supportive of the setback for the platform to the neighbor. I would have asked for that extra foot, and I'll just restate, it was nice to see the agent make that modification voluntarily. So given those modifications, I don't have any concern. I'll see how my colleagues feel. Yes, Mr. Nipville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just very briefly, I think that the gentleman that was speaking for his parents made a very good point, and that was that yes, the second floor balcony was a huge privacy issue, but I would argue that the main floor balcony is an equally huge issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's way up in the air, and it overlooks the property next door.
Mm-hmm.
Adding a privacy screen, depending on the design and how it's done, it could add to the bulk of the building, or it could be articulated as something better. I think the preferable solution, frankly, is to not allow that particular deck to be the size that's proposed. As the neighbor's son indicated, you walk out of the main floor, and if you go down those stairs, there's a massive patio behind the property already.
Yep.
If you go to the lower level, there's a bar and a kitchenette and another patio there. And there's another patio beside it. There are all sorts of spaces there that provide the space that main floor deck is providing. My preference would be to not approve the variance that allows that size deck. But as an alternative, I could agree as long as there was screening.
What is the size? Do we have the size of that platform? It's a 2.5 meter projection, but you've got this 9.4. I mean, we're not looking at a 20 meter, like some of these applications today, we're seeing 20 plus, you know.
Well, which means that the screen wall isn't going to be that long.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's a reasonable alternative, but I think the better solution is to not have the deck that big in the first place. Given
Yeah.
that there are already three massive decks.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't hear Mr. Nipfeld.
Sorry, I turned my
Oh,
speaker off.
thank you, Ms. Sankar.
You missed it all, or just the last part? Did you hear anything of that I said?
I think when he just, well, I heard some parts of it, but go
what
ahead. I
was
just wanted to
arguing
let
was
you know. To say
I thought that the gentleman that spoke for his parents, a neighbor, made a good point, and that was that on the main floor, if you go down the stairs, if you don't have
yes,
a
I
deck
heard that
size,
part. It's,
yeah, and so
yeah.
I'm arguing that given there's a massive patio behind this structure, and if you go to the lower level, there's two patios at the lower level, I don't think there's much merit or need for the deck on the main floor to be as large as it is. So my first choice would be to not approve the variance that allows the deck to be that big. But as an alternative, if screening is provided, I could live with 9.4. I think the cleaner solution is a smaller deck.
I'd also note, it's funny, you're looking at the, sorry, just quickly.
I was just going to say, I'm happy to support, like, you know, Mr. Nipfeld's proposal for a screening if needed.
Yeah, just to put it, you're noting the variance for the area. I was looking at the setback of the platform, thinking, well, if you refuse the setback, the side yard setback, it provides a little bit more separation. It's an extra foot, but it's still up in the air. And you're saying just so. What about the setback then? Are you supportive of as an? He did agree to remove it, yeah. So that's with the removal of that setback. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Manager, for noting that. Okay. Do you have a motion?
Well, I think overall, I don't have any issue. I understand that it's a little bit of more square footage for the balcony, I mean the terrace, but overall, I think with the amendment, I support this application. I'm fine with 9.4 with inclusion of the privacy screen. So.
Yep.
I can put forward a motion, yes. So I'd like to make a motion to approve this application as amended. So I'm going to go through revisions. Variance number 2 to be eliminated. Variance number 7 and 8 to be reduced to 8.6 meter. Variance number 10 to be eliminated. Also for the front yard driveway portion to be permeable, and also inclusion of privacy screen on the east side, with condition number 1 for urban forestry.
1.5 meters opaque?
1.5 meters opaque for the privacy screen, yes.
Okay, very good. Yes. Ms. Sankar? She'll second that. You have a seconder. All in favor? Yeah. We have an interruption there? Okay. All in favor? That's unanimous. The motion carries. Application as amended is approved. Okay, the time is now 1:57. That concludes our morning session. We will resume just before 3 o'clock to start our 2 p.m. session. I should note we don't have too many items on the 2 p.m. agenda, so I'm hoping to get us back on schedule to start right on time at 4 p.m. for our 4 p.m. time slot.
It's application number 28.